I bring up Trask, I'm going to bring up Benson.
This one says, what worries me is that the Alabama players are undersized. Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift were 15 to 20 pounds bigger than Gibbs, and they were always hurt. Says, I like the Eagles strategy more. They took the big, strong defensive players from Georgia. Time will tell. That's Doug in Rochester.
That's valid. That's very valid. That's my concern about Gibbs is, and when we talked to running backs coach Scotty Montgomery, he mentioned that he was excited about being able to hand him the ball out of the backfield, that it was better than he thought, but he is, soaking wet. He's 200 pounds. I do have a concern about his durability, but he's very elusive, and I think they're going to use him more as a pass catcher than they will handing him the ball in the backfield.
He has said they're going to use him more as a pass catcher than he was at Alabama, so I think that kind of goes together. We're excited for the NFL, excited for the Lions preseason game tomorrow. College football going to be here before you know it. Week 0 is just over 2 weeks away. Coming up next, 5 most bet college football overs and unders. A local team is included. It's 97.1.
Two homers for Spencer Torkelson facing a 17-hit Tiger attack, 9-5. Tigers over the Twins. They wrap it up with a matinee today. 110 right here on the ticket. Reese Olson going for Detroit. And it was a good day for former Tigers. Courtesy of the Phillies Radio Network, this update brought to you by Mother Waddles. Also, Tigers dealing their all-star pitcher Lorenzen just before the trade deadline for a minor league infielder, the Phillies' number 5 overall prospect. Lions and Giants wrapped up day 2 of the joint practices in Allen Park yesterday. 2 teams opened the preseason 7 p.m. Friday night or at Ford Field, 6 p.m. the pregame right here on 97.1 The Ticket. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Jeff Lesson. For more 97.1 The Ticket or Odyssey.com.
John, I bring this up because, 1, I love college football, but 2, there's a referendum for one of our local teams. They are one of the 5 most bet overs for the upcoming college football season. Let me take you through it. 5 most bet over, 5 most bet under totals for the upcoming season. In the over category, Colorado, over 3.5 wins. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
Okay, people are with you. Number 2, we're going to skip them. Number 3, Kansas State over 8 wins.
Under.
Texas, big popular team this year. Texas is back over 9.5.
This is a tough one. This is put. I'm gonna go thumbs down.
Iowa over 8.5.
I'm gonna go thumbs up.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think they avoid both Michigan and Ohio State in the regular season. If they can get a pulse offensively with Cade McNamara and Eric All. Okay, the team that is the second most bet over in all of college football is the Michigan State Spartans over 5.5 wins. My question, is Tuck coming? Is that still the train on its tracks there? Because it seems like the public believes they're going to be a bowl team this year, confidently betting them to win more than 5 games.
That's a tough one right now at 5.5. Obviously, if you go thumbs up, you're saying they are a bowl team, and they should start off 2-0.
Let's slow down. Week 1 could be a doozy for them.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Mr. Cookies. But Central Michigan should not be a team that tests the Spartans. Physically, speed. I know you're somewhat being funny. Central Michigan, Richmond should both be wins. We'll find out so much about them when Washington comes to town. Michael Penix, is he going to be able to test that secondary, which I think he will. He'll test the secondary. We'll find out about this defense. When they get into the Big Ten schedule, So I have them going 2-1 in the regular in the preseason. When they play Maryland, they play them at home. This is a team that is a revamped offensive line. This is a team that lost both corners. We talked to Banks was a hot name going into the draft, possibly for the Lions in their second first-round pick. But they have a returning quarterback in Talia. Thank you, Stoney. That one never gets old, obviously, to his brother. And I think this is going to be one of those must-win games if they're going to get to that 6, because then they're on the road at Iowa, and I already gave the thumbs up to Iowa in them going over and getting to 9 wins. They're on the road to Rutgers. We know about the Michigan game. Minnesota on the road. They've got Ohio State on the road. They've got Penn State. I mean, those wins are going to be tough to come by in the second half of the season. So I think that they got to, in that first 4 games, if they're going to get to that over, they need to be 2-2 and get that win. I mean, 3-1.
Yeah, I think the Maryland game early is big because they are going to sling it around. That's what they've done well. And MSU's deficiency, even in the 11-win season, they couldn't stop the pass. That's a big litmus test, 4th game of the season. John, when I look at Michigan State, though, I see a team that doesn't know who their quarterback is, doesn't have any high-end skill players. They bring back 5 offensive linemen from a team who couldn't run the ball well last year. And I'm wondering, this is the 4th year for Tucker. If they're going to win, I think they're going to have to do it with defense. And that's when I look to some of the players they brought in from the portal. A couple guys from Power 5 schools, Florida State and Texas A&M on the defensive line. They have Barrow in the middle at defensive tackle. And I wonder, is this the year that Tucker shows his prowess as a defensive coach? Because if, to me, they are a bowl team, it's going to be because they make significant strides on that side of the ball. I don't think you can go into the season and say they're going to bank on hitting a home run at the quarterback spot. I think those guys are battling, and there is no clear starter at this point. There's going to be growing pains for them. And I think offensively, they may be challenged. So does Tucker earn his keep by building a defense capable of winning games in the low 20s? I think that's the question for Michigan State. And if you believe the answer is yes, they hired the right coach, defense is going to break through in year 4, they'll stop the pass, they'll get to the quarterback, then they should win 6 or even 7 games. But the fact that it's set at 5.5 and it's plus odds, that's Vegas saying, we heard Mel Tucker. You are a horse bleep coach. We don't think you're very good. We don't think you're going to get up off the mat. We think your program isn't where it needs to be in its 4th season. So I wonder from Spartan fans or even just, casual observers, are they on board the Spartans as a bowl team this season? Public says yes. Books say no. 248-539-9797.
I think when you're looking at must-win games, if they're going to get to 6, and if they have any hopes of getting to 7 or 8, yes, it is going to be dependent on the coach ability of this team. Mel Tucker, his staff, how can they develop these guys? You got to win those first 2 games, Central Michigan and Richmond. You've got to beat Maryland. That'll give you 3 wins. You got to go on the road to Rutgers and get number 4. You've got to beat Nebraska at home. That's 5. And then you got to go on the road at Indiana. That should be a very winnable game. That's 6. Mm-hmm. So they should. Those are the must-win games. And then you throw in, okay, what do they do on the road at Iowa? What do they do against Michigan, Minnesota? They do have an opportunity, if they can turn up the heat on the defense, to be a team that goes 7 or 8 wins. I think that's a stretch.
But the scary thing here for Spartan fans, and with this number, and for Jim, good job finding this, and see, they don't think they're going to win those 6 games. Isn't that's scary? They don't think they're going to win one of those games. They're not favored in one of those games.
Think about
this.
That's
scary.
Last year, you said they should beat Indiana. I think Tom Allen's probably fired at the end of this season. Probably should have been fired at the end of last season. They were 1-8 to close the season. You know who the one win was against? Michigan State.
Well,
so that's the only concern here is they should have been a bowl team last year.
Yeah, and the reason that Tom Allen's still there is because of that contract. Indiana doesn't have the same finances to be able to fire a coach and pay 2 coaches big money with one of them not working for them anymore. Coming out of the pandemic in those couple of years there, he got that contract extension, and rightfully so. But if they don't produce more wins this year, yeah, Tom Allen, I think, is looking for work.
So the answer is Tuck, or the question is Tuck still coming?
Yeah.
Or is this an issue where you are concerned about the foundation of your football program? Because, John, I mean, I get it, like Wolverine over there, but I think you're being fair about this. Like, what would you say they need to do this season to still feel confident that they've got the right guy at head coach?
Well, I think that he has shown that he can go in the transfer portal, and we saw that in year one with, and I'm not counting the pandemic year, I'm counting the year one where he had Kenneth Walker III. That was a great pickup and a great recruiting job of attracting him to East Lansing. And then you think about, okay, what are they doing at the quarterback position? How is it that they can find that next guy? And if they go with youth and say, we're going to take our lumps this year, we're going to try to develop this quarterback, then I think you go thumbs down and you say under. If they go with Noah Kim,
yeah,
a guy that has been in the program,
4th year in the system,
then all of a sudden you say, okay, they're going for the over. They're making a push this year to be that bowl team. The problem is the unknown of the receivers. You lose your 2 best players, and one of them is going to be down at Florida State. Who is he throwing the ball to? And that's simply the unknown right now is, have they been able to put some speed and playmaking ability at that wide receiver position?
If they go Katin Hauser, he's the highest recruited quarterback they've had in 10 years. Do they start the season with him under center? Are they forced to go to him because of struggling quarterback play from Noah Kim? I mean, there are scenarios where this season goes topsy-turvy. Ticket Texter says if Tucker goes back-to-back 5 and 7 seasons, oh boy, I don't think you can survive that at a big-time program. And then in 2024, you add 4 good programs to the Big Ten. I think that's the other subtext here, is if they don't achieve bowl eligibility, which to me is not that high of a bar for a team that's employing a $100 million coach that's a year removed from an 11-win season. But if they don't make a bowl game, and then you add USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington, are you risking, by keeping him, are you risking getting washed to the lower tier of the Big Ten?
Well, I think it really comes down to, and he outkicked his coverage in 2021 by having Kenneth Walker III. And that kind of gave them, it's like Brady Hoke in his first year with Denard still at quarterback and getting 10 wins. It was kind of that false hope. He knew, that staff knew, and I think we all knew, they're going to have to hit the recruiting trail and be able to develop some of their own guys. Yes, you can go and add talent from the transfer portal, but it can't be your main source of production. And where are they in developing and recruiting their own talent going into year 4?
Yeah, so you say 2020, you don't really count the COVID year,
right,
year
yeah.
1. It's still his 4th season as the head coach. He's had several recruiting cycles. He's had his coaches try to develop guys along the way. They've been in his strength and conditioning program. Whether you want to count the win-loss records from 2020 or not, he's had 4 years to build up infrastructure and a roster and set this team up to show you what does a Mel Tucker football program look like.
Facilities.
And facilities. That's the other thing. I think there are, or should be, expectations for Michigan State long-term as a program, and this year to me is pivotal, whether or not you've got the right guy or not. 248-539-9797. Coming up next, Michael Lorenzen, the alert on your phone last night. Be honest, your reaction when you saw it, 97.1.
Hey, I'm a big fan of my friends over at Straith Orthopedics because they're the experts at affordable, non-invasive hip and knee replacements. Dr. Fleischman is highly trained in treatment for the hip and knee, including minimally invasive treatment, stem cell, and robotic joint replacement. He's the best of the best, can get you on the road to living a life free from pain. But the best news is you don't just have to take my word for it. Straith Orthopedics has tons of glowing reviews from current and former patients. Take this one from Dan. He visited Straith Orthopedics 3 months ago for a hip replacement. Now he has zero pain, increased flexibility, and his back and knee pain has vanished. Dan says his follow-up has been off the charts, and he'll recommend Dr. Fleischman to everyone. So Dan's going to ask, and I'm going to ask, what are you waiting for? Take it from Dan and so many others. If you're suffering from joint pain, don't delay. You deserve to live a pain-free life. Consult the experts today and get back to your old life, going for walks, playing golf, pickleball, basketball, whatever it is, and doing it pain-free. Just go see Dr. Fleischman. Call Straith Orthopedics at 855-STRAIGHT or schedule online at straith.org. That's STRAITH.org. Straith Orthopedics is committed to you.
Clearly believe they're going to 20. I think there's hesitancy on who it is.
Well, I think the hesitancy is it going to be Cal and Stanford, or are they going to wait to see if the ACC, if there's a mass evacuation from there, because then you'd have a chance at schools like, if you wanted to dip into Florida, you've got Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, and Virginia seem like better fits as universities. But I think they're waiting to see if they want to go that route and leave 2 slots open, or if they just want to fill them right now with Cal and Stanford.
But the SEC, if the Big Ten goes to 20, I think the SEC is eventually, and people think it's a given that the SEC is going to just grab 4 ACC teams.
Yeah,
I do think Oklahoma State and Kansas are potential possibilities. And it's because of the rivalry with Oklahoma, Bedlam. You're keeping that, and I think a respected football program, and then Kansas from the basketball.
I think they have populated this roster with good players. They have populated this roster with professionals. There's less nonsense, and these guys can play. Dan Campbell has kind of set the tone for the culture, and Brad Holmes, who built draft boards with the Rams and did a great job without first-round picks for Les Snead, setting up picks in, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, and helping that team. They basically drafted well and supplemented with huge moves. Brad Holmes has come here, and he has drafted well. I fully believe that. And I think this is going to be one of those seasons where when the final 53-man roster comes out, there are going to be some painful cuts. We're going to be like, oh, I didn't think they cut him. And for the first time, I'm watching other teams play preseason games, and I usually watch
honest reaction when it hits your phone. John, you got the alert. Some people may have seen it scrolling social media. Honest in the moment reaction. What's the first thing that popped in your head? 248-539-9797.
Because their roster's good.
John, mine was, of course.
Right.
Of course. Now, I'm not upset about it because you can't go back. They made the right decision to trade him. He didn't throw it against the Tigers, but my initial reaction was, of course he did. Of course he threw a no-hitter.
And it wasn't like we're all happy for Michael Lorenzen, a true pro, a guy that was a class act here, was a class act when he left. Hey, I loved it in Detroit. They helped me with a lot. I owe a lot to the staff there. And what it did was bring back all of the conversations about the trade deadline. There was an open wound. And not that it's really ever going to heal because Erod is still here, even though he has pitched well in both of his outings since the trade deadline. It was, we didn't get anything in return from Eduardo Rodriguez. And it just picks at that scab and makes it hurt all over again. That's what last night was. It wasn't that, hey, he had success after leaving the Tigers. Because we even for Philly, he's still a rental for them.
Mm-hmm.
He was a rental here. We knew when we signed him that we're hoping that he was going to be good enough for us to be able to trade at the trade deadline. Mission accomplished. You got a prospect in return. What happens with him will, TBD. But it was simply picking at the open wound or the scab, wherever you are in the healing process of the trade deadline.
When they traded Lorenzen, John, I didn't hear your reaction the next day. I'm assuming you had no issue with the return.
No, I had no problem with it. It's a value that you thought you'd get back.
Right, and I don't think there was anybody nationally when they did the trade breakdown thought the Tigers did a bad job. So I don't want to overreact to him throwing a no-hitter and insinuate that Scott Harris botched the Lorenzen deadline. At least he got something for him. You're right, though. If you really want to take it all the way back, it does remind you that Eduardo Rodriguez is still throwing for this team every fifth day. They didn't get anything for him. And he may opt out at the end of the season, too. I would rather see Eduardo Rodriguez throw a no-hitter for the Dodgers last night than have him still pitch for the Detroit Tigers. So from that standpoint, the Lorenzen thing doesn't bother me. And you're right. He is someone who is easy to root for. He came here. He found himself a little bit. And then he was complimentary on the way out. No bad blood. He didn't throw it against the Tigers. He didn't hurt the Tigers. Best of luck. No hard feelings. I wish I could say the same with Eduardo.
Well, and I think most people's reaction was probably like yours, where it was you get the notification on your phone or you're scrolling through social media and it says, hey, Michael Lorenzen is 3 outs away from a no-hitter. You turn it on and you're watching, or you get the notification that Lorenzen throws the no-hitter in his home debut in Philly, and it's kind of like, oh, really? That was the reaction. Happy for him, but it's just kind of that moment where you're like, okay, it feels like it fits the bill for, right now, Detroit sports.
That's what a texter says. He says, this is the closest thing we get to success now. Lorenzen, Stafford, KCP, Reggie Jackson for the Nuggets. Says Verlander, Scherzer. I won't dig up all the former Red Wings, but you get the point. That's from Tom in Flat Rock. Texter says, as a Detroiter living in Baltimore, I was watching the Orioles game and got the no-no alert. Since it was against the Nationals, I was able to tune it in and watch at the end. I told my son it was a former Tiger, Jason in Baltimore. Another person says, my first thought was 4 walks and only 5 strikeouts. Is it that great of a no-hitter? Still a no-hitter.
It's still a no-hitter, yes. There's some assistance behind him, sure. And that goes to the question of, could it have happened here? Would they have had the defense for him to be able to get the no-hitter?
I love that. I don't want to be that person that just sent that text. Seriously. I know Edwin Jackson had the worst no-hitter in the history of baseball, probably, when he had the 9 walks or 140 pitches. And was Lorenzen's as beautiful as JV's?
No.
Probably not. And do you rank them? Yeah, but a no-hitter's a no-hitter.
Yeah.
You know, he went 120 pitches last night.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jack Morris loaded the bases with walks in his no-hitter in 84. And we celebrate the heck out of that.
I asked for honest reaction. That was his honest reaction. Doesn't have to be logical. He might not still feel the same way this
Was it
morning. but
really that good?
His reaction was 124 pitches, 4 walks. Wasn't that impressive?
There's a different
I'm
way.
not agreeing with him. I asked for people to be honest. That's honesty. I'm not going to beat him up for being honest.
There's a different way to say that and still be honest and maybe not sound as kind of
Bitter.
rigorish.
Oh,
A verb, to rigor.
Yeah. Where was that texter from? Was it in disguise?
It says, we'll see. Let's check the number here in a second. Let's go to Heather with the news.
Okay, so I really like this guy, G-Matt Cash. Remember him? The giant
Oh,
slide,
yeah.
Big Gretch, all those raps that have went viral.
Yeah.
Well, he's going viral again, and this time his new rap is all about that wild brawl that erupted in Alabama. I'm sure you guys have seen
Yeah, in Montgomery.
videos of this. Yes. So his new rap is called the Montgomery Brawl, right? And if you haven't seen any videos of this brawl that took place, just Google it. They're all over. But basically, the videos show a black dock worker who was arguing with a white man over his pontoon boat that was blocking this dock space that was needed to park a riverboat, right? It shouldn't have had his pontoon boat parked there. That riverboat had to wait like a half hour before they could even park the boat so that they could get everybody off. The fight escalated. More people got involved. In the end, 13 people were detained for questioning. 3 people were charged, and all 3 people who were charged were white men who were on that pontoon boat. Anyway, that big brawl inspired G-Matt Cash for his latest rap. He posted the rap on social media earlier this week, and it already has millions of views. So here's a little sampling.
It's good.
It's great. What's
It's
even
good.
better, online, he has a video that correlates to his lyrics of the brawl. So when you hear something about the unk with the chair, you see the guy with the chair slamming it over somebody's head. I mean, it all correlates to the video you got to check out.
Or how about Aquaman? How quickly that guy swam.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. And I didn't know a whole lot about G-Matt Cash except for the songs we've played on air. So I'm following him on social media, watch some of his other raps. I'm a big fan. I am now a big fan of G-Matt Cash. I watched a bunch of his raps last night.
Yes.
They're fabulous because he just raps about whatever's going on. He's getting attacked by mosquitoes. Let's rap about it. Coronavirus. Let's rap about it. Montgomery Brawl. Let's rap about it. It's great. It's fabulous. Anyway, check it out. This is also a fabulous story thanks to a teammate, Zach Conti, who is an Eastern Michigan offensive lineman, won't have to sell his plasma to pay for college anymore. So Conti made it on the team as a walk-on 2019, and he was not able to obtain a scholarship when he joined the roster. So, of course, he was forced to pay his way through school. You know, picked up a bunch of odd jobs, but when those jobs weren't enough, he also decided to sell his plasma for some extra cash. Well, he won't have to do that anymore because he was surprised with a full scholarship after his teammate, Brian Dooley, gave up his remaining years of his scholarship. And the news came as basically a surprise announcement that was made by the coach last week. a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, brings a smile to your face.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible, and it is something you don't hear of, right?
Never. I mean,
you never hear of people giving up. And I didn't even know that was allowed, to be honest, that you could just give up your scholarship and give it to somebody else, because I've never heard of anybody doing it.
No, we normally get this time of year, the coach reveals to the walk-on, you are on scholarship. We've seen those. Those can be
Sure.
fun and heartwarming. I have never, to your point, heard a player say, I'll pay my own way this year so he can get his school paid for. I've
Right.
never seen that.
Absolutely incredible. This story is pretty cool, too. Weeks ago, you might remember there was a woman who went into labor at a Taylor Swift concert.
Yes.
You remember that story? It was like after the concert. Well, anyway, last week, a New York woman went into labor at a Pink concert. And this woman, she was 31 weeks pregnant when she went to this concert. She was there for a girls' trip, so she wasn't. What was your face?
Well,
So she wasn't that far. I mean, she had several weeks remaining, 9 weeks remaining
Yeah.
until technically her due date was supposed to arrive.
Yeah.
Enough time, I think, to do a little traveling, to do a
Yes.
little girls' trip. Still got plenty of
Sure.
time. 9 weeks left. Anyway, right after they arrived at Fenway, where Pink was performing, she realized that she was starting to experience contractions. So they didn't even get into the concert.
Oh.
And then she called her doctor, got some advice. They said, you know what? You need to get to a hospital. But because there was so much chaos going on, finding a ride, getting through traffic wasn't working. So she walked over a mile to the hospital while experiencing contractions. And just shortly after arriving at the hospital, she gave birth to a little baby boy.
Oh, boy. Wow.
Yeah.
And mom and baby
Everyone's healthy. I think he was
Good.
in the NICU a little bit. He was, because he was
Yeah,
born
early,
But it sounds like everybody was healthy. Just very, very unexpected, but pretty exciting.
Born in Boston.
Yes.
It's Heather with the news. Coming up next, Tiger manager A.J. Hinch. They won last night against the Twins, playing them again today. It's 97-1.
Is there any reason that you have seen, any evidence that people should be tapping the brakes on their enthusiasm?
Look, I think the Lions are going to be really good this year. I mean, I've covered this team. I started at the Free Press in 2010, and there's been hype before. I think, coming off that 2011 season, there was a lot of hype for 2012. Just, young Matthew Stafford and Sue and Kelvin. And I don't know if I quite bought in. They didn't do anything in that offseason. This offseason, they went for it, and that's the biggest difference to me. And so I don't know that they're a Super Bowl team, but I expect them to win the division. I expect them to get a home playoff game. And if that happens, you're a couple wins away from the Super Bowl. I mean, you're within spitting distance of the Super Bowl. So I'm not trying to.
Wow, you were the first person to use the word Super Bowl today.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Wow.
So I don't want to say I don't think the Lions are a Super Bowl team, but it's not that unreasonable that people have this belief that, wow, we're getting closer to that, I guess is the.
Here are the defensive players that were amongst the list of 10 players who stood out early in camp. 1, defensive back Brian Branch. First-round talent that dropped to the Lions in round 2. Branch has come to Allen Park with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. Branch is already working himself into first-team reps with his ability to play both in the box and cover equally well. If Branch continues on his trajectory, it's going to be hard for defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn to take him off the field, especially on passing downs. Okay. That would be useful.
That's very useful, and I know Gator subscribes to this, is the guys in the secondary seem to always get hurt, and they get hurt often.
Yep.
Whether it's for a play, a week, or a month, you have to have depth there. And if you have quality depth, that's huge, because going against someone's what happens in a game, Doug, when a starting cornerback goes out of the game and they replace him with someone off the bench? That guy he's covering immediately gets targeted by the other team. Okay, so to have Brian Branch or anybody, Jerry Jacobs, whoever it is, ready to go if they don't start, that's huge.
Also off the defense, who else has stood out? Defensive lineman Aiden Hutchinson. Hutchinson focused on gaining strength and polishing some movement skills this offseason. The results have him looking like
So I was wondering, 248-539-9797, real quick, who's the worst Lions quarterback in your lifetime?
Well, that's a terrific question. And
In your Lion fandom.
Unfortunately, there are many to choose from. And if how far are we going back? We just going 30 years? My lifetime?
Your lifetime.
Okay, all right. I got to believe at the near the top of that list would be one Ty Detmer. Was 1-3 as a starter, threw 3 touchdowns, and that's where the positives end. 3 fumbles, and had 10 interceptions. This all being, let's go back, 1-3, 4 games.
Yeah. I mean, what was it, 6 or 7 in one game? I think he had 6 against Cleveland. That was the first game after 9/11. And he had another one that was.
I think Brad Holmes told you exactly what he's thinking about Jared Goff right there. He talks about we have to retain good players, our core players, and he names Jonah Jackson, Penei Sewell, St. Brown, and he starts to name Jared Goff, and then he stops.
You can't afford them all.
I think he was trying to tell you that he thinks that Jared Goff is part of the core here and that he's going to re-sign him.
Yeah, but David, I think he's also implying you can't keep everybody. He also didn't mention Aiden Hutchinson, who, if he has a big year,
but that's
is going to be
away.
Well, that's my point. You have a couple years to make these decisions. It's why he's not making a move with an extension for Jared Goff today, because if Hutch has a Bosa-like step forward, I'll start peeling off $20-30 million.
but
And it's Sewell's going to get paid. You saw what's Andrew Thomas, the Giant, got paid. You start thinking about how quickly this cap space goes away.
Oh, no.
You have to plan for everybody, not just Goff.
I think it's easy to set up a contract for Goff after this year or even before this year to where his guarantees is gone before you ever have to think about paying Aiden Hutchinson.
But I just think the adding of Teddy Bridgewater, there's not just, the fact that they're getting a quality backup. I mean, their best backups in Sean Hill. It feels like it's a position that they have blown off and gotten away with not having a quality, veteran. You want somebody that can win you football games on a Sunday, not somebody who can win you a division. I mean, that's great if you have a backup that can win you a division, but guys who can win you a division typically are starters elsewhere.
It's funny. We have such fond memories of Sean Hill, the Sean Hill era.
Yep.
He was 3-7 as a starting quarterback with the Lions.
Yeah, but typically, I think people remember it as it wasn't his fault.
Well, right. I think you're right with that. I mean, because those were some really bad teams. Well, it was actually the one year in 2010. That's when he got all his starts with them when he was 3-7, and then didn't really play a whole lot the last 3 years when he was a Lion. But this is how we remember him. And
I'd like to know the people's viewpoint on another hype train that is soaring right now. This train is gathering steam, momentum. Now, I'd like to say I am guilty as being a part of it. I have said that this particular team is the largest threat to the established champion this year. The hype train is Michigan football. And it's not just, hey, they're going to be really good, or hey, they're going to beat OSU. There is the Blake Corum remark, which I'm not upset. I think Corum's earned the right to say it. He's been in school for years. He's the team's best back. He is the bell cow. And he said it's national championship or bust. I don't have a problem with it. You have the national media. Michigan. Okay, normal. But boy, we have audio today where I went, okay, timeout. Just a quick TO. And it is one of the most unbelievable things I've ever heard. But then I checked.
clearly believe they're going to 20. I think there's hesitancy on who it is.
Well, I think the hesitancy is it going to be Cal and Stanford, or are they going to wait to see if the ACC, if there's a mass evacuation from there, because then you'd have a chance at schools like, if you wanted to dip into Florida, you've got Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, and Virginia seem like better fits as universities. But I think they're waiting to see if they want to go that route and leave 2 slots open, or if they just want to fill them right now with Cal and Stanford.
But the SEC, if the Big Ten goes to 20, I think the SEC is eventually. And people think it's a given that the SEC is going to just grab 4 ACC teams.
Yeah.
I do think Oklahoma State and Kansas are potential possibilities. And it's because of the rivalry with Oklahoma, Bedlam. You're keeping that. And I think a respected football program, and then Kansas from the basketball.
I think they have populated this roster with good players. They have populated this roster with professionals. There's less nonsense, and these guys can play. Dan Campbell has kind of set the tone for the culture, and Brad Holmes, who built draft boards with the Rams and did a great job without first-round picks for Les Snead, setting up picks in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, and helping that team. They basically drafted well and supplemented with huge moves. Brad Holmes has come here, and he has drafted well. I fully believe that. And I think this is going to be one of those seasons where when they final 53-man roster comes out, there are going to be some painful cuts. We're going to be like, oh, I didn't think they cut him. And for the first time, I'm watching other teams play preseason games, and I usually watch for guys that I hope get cut by those teams that maybe the Lions can pick up. I think the Lions have moved past many of these teams talent-wise that they're not even going to be able to or want to pick up other teams' cast-offs because their roster's good. I think the talent is here. And, there's some prove it to it. There's some prove it to it. But my God.
Is there any reason that you have seen, any evidence that people should be tapping the brakes on their enthusiasm?
Look, I think the Lions are going to be really good this year. I mean, I've covered this team. I started at the Free Press in 2010, and there's been hype before. I think, coming off that 2011 season, there was a lot of hype for 2012. Just, young Matthew Stafford and Sue and Kelvin. And I don't know if I quite bought in. They didn't do anything in that offseason. This offseason, they went for it. And that's the biggest difference to me. And so I don't know that they're a Super Bowl team, but I expect them to win the division. I expect them to get a home playoff game. And if that happens, you're a couple wins away from the Super Bowl. I mean, you're within spitting distance of the Super Bowl. So I'm not trying to.
Wow, you were the first person to use the word Super Bowl today.
Yeah. I mean, look,
wow.
Wow. So I don't want to say I don't think the Lions are a Super Bowl team, but it's not that unreasonable that people have this belief that, wow, we're getting closer to that, I guess.
Here are the defensive players that were amongst the list of 10 players who stood out early in camp. 1, defensive back Brian Branch. First-round talent that dropped to the Lions in round 2. Branch has come to Allen Park with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. Branch is already working himself into first-team reps with his ability to play both in the box and cover equally well. If Branch continues on his trajectory, it's going to be hard for defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn to take him off the field, especially on passing downs. Okay. That would be useful.
That's very useful. And I know Gator subscribes to this, is the guys in the secondary seem to always get hurt, and they get hurt often.
Yep.
Whether it's for a play, a week, or a month, you have to have depth there. And if you have quality depth, that's huge. Because going against someone's what happens in a game, Doug, when a starting cornerback goes out of the game and they replace him with someone off the bench? That guy he's covering immediately gets targeted by the other team. Okay, so to have Brian Branch or anybody, Jerry Jacobs, whoever it is, ready to go if they don't start, that's huge.
Also off the defense, who else has stood out? Defensive lineman Aiden Hutchinson.
Heartbreak City earlier today. The 2 grand slam down to the wire. John, I really thought we had a winner.
I thought so too, especially since I got to narrate it. I thought, here we go. I get a chance to celebrate. And so close.
He was good. He knew his stuff. And I think now that he has heard the answer to the last question, he is kicking himself because he should have known it.
For people who missed it, 7:25 Tuesdays and Thursdays, you should be up. You should be playing this. This guy was one question away. He's come up short twice now. He's finished one question shy of 2 grand now 2 different times. We can play it for people who missed it, and then we'll see if Gator can deliver on it. But, Greg, we have that ready. This was earlier today, the 2 grand slam.
Six. That obvious answer, Ant-Man. And he was sitting
trying
there
to
going,
think of like the character
man.
name. Yeah.
Yep. Character's name. We would have taken Scott Lang or Ant-Man. And I'm just glad that he could overcome the narrator.
What is
when
it
I
with
said
the narrator?
2000 sexy back.
The narrator always screws up.
No, the narrator is usually pretty good. He may stutter a little bit. I didn't stutter. I did overcome my own obstacle at the beginning with the crowd noise.
Yeah, but that wasn't your fault.
Well, no, it wasn't my fault, but then I said Jahmyr Gibbs as a basketball
I did
player.
hear
yeah.
that. Yes, I did hear that.
Which he did
So-
not play basketball for anybody curious.
That now ranks as the most painful loss in 2 Grand Slam history. It has. We agreed earlier.
I think so.
Yes.
It now passed the Cubs when the guy couldn't. It was like a month after the World Series. We asked
Yeah.
who won the Cubs last year, and the guy couldn't think of it. When the Cubs were the most memorable one, especially in that moment.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? That right there. Wow.
That guy's going to win at some point, though.
He knew the answers so quickly. He didn't hesitate on anything.
Oh, he was money.
Except the very last question.
Yes, and obviously Gator has arrived. We will give him the opportunity to win nothing. Other
But
than-
pride,
other
you know.
than-
That's
my favorite
than pride.
opportunity
I
of all.
believe. Was it Tuesday?
Yes.
You got all 10?
Yes.
All right. So we have an opportunity, probably the first time ever, to go back to back with anybody. And Gator, I'm going to give you the opportunity here for 10 questions. Let me know when you are prepared.
I am ready.
Okay. Where did Jahmyr Gibbs play in college last season?
Alabama,
Kirk Gibson wore this jersey number as a Detroit Tiger.
23.
Christian Kirk is a wide receiver that currently plays for this NFL team.
Pass.
The Jacksonville Jaguars drafted this player first overall in 2022.
Trevor Lawrence. Christian Kirk plays for Jacksonville.
Okay, you can't do that. The Giants drafted this Oregon defensive end fifth overall in 2022.
Thibodeau.
Where did Justin Herbert play in college?
Oregon.
This singer and actor had the 2006 hit Sexy Back.
Timberlake.
Karl Anthony Towns plays for this NBA team.
Boston. I don't
What is the capital of Minnesota?
know. St. Paul.
Paul Rudd played this character in Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
Christian Kirk is a wide receiver that currently plays for this NFL team.
Jacksonville.
There you go. So we got through all 10.
He only got 9 right.
Only got 9 right. So you tied.
Yeah. What was the basketball one? Where did he play?
Actually, he only got 8
Timberwolves.
right. Only got 8 right because he said Trevor Lawrence. It was Trayvon Walker.
Right. So yes, we I did give you the opportunity to go back and get it right, but yes, it was wrong.
Now let's have Doug do it.
Hey, Doug, you want to?
Yes, yeah, Doug. Doug, Paul Rudd was played this character in Ant-Man. Appreciate the pause for
Did you
dramatic
give him
effect.
credit for Thibodeau?
Yeah, he got Thibodeau.
Okay. I just wonder what the judges on Jeopardy would
Oh, because I
say,
said
he
Thibodeau?
No, I would give it to you because I like making that pronunciation as well.
It's spelled that way. So
Yes. So on Jeopardy, if you had spelled it right, but you said it wrong, I think it would still count.
I mean, I would have. If I got denied on that, I would have punched her back in the mouth back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, if he said no.
Violent.
Golly. Angry.
Hey, it's
angry
all about.
loser.
We're talking about money, okay?
Yes, we are. And actually, we're not right now. But yes,
No, we're not
I tripped
about
up on the same one in terms of Karl Anthony Towns. It's not basketball season, not top of mind, and I just was like,
his
I
whole
don't know.
career there.
Okay, fine. Gator, I'm with you. That one tripped me up.
What are you guys going to talk
Somewhere
about?
out west. No, where is it? Where is he playing?
What are you guys going to get into today on the show?
We're going to get into what we saw from Lions camp yesterday. Kind of excited about a couple players that are rookies, and one of them is really kind of pushing the envelope, getting a lot of press right now. We'll talk about him, and there was some history made last night.
Do tell. It's 97.1.
And we're brought to you by CGC Water Treatment. Season high 17 column hits for the Tigers, several of them with 3 hits. That would include one Miguel Cabrera, also 2 dingers for Spencer Torkelson. Tigers take it 9-5 over Minnesota. Series wraps up with a matinee today at Comerica Park. 1:10 the first pitch here on the ticket. Reese Olson going for Detroit. Good day for former Tigers. Former Tiger Michael Lorenzen throwing a no-no in his second start for the Phillies after being traded by the Tigers. It was a 124-pitch complete game. They gave him a 7-0 win over Washington. Add to that, former Tiger Nick Castellanos went deep twice. Lions and Giants wrapping up 2 days of joint practices at Allen Park yesterday. The two teams opened the preseason 7 p.m. Friday night at Ford Field, 6 p.m. the pregame, right here on 97 when the ticket. Details of the Teddy Bridgewater contract out, with the Lions reportedly giving him $2.5 million guaranteed, and a deal that could be worth as much as $5 million. Lions legendary back Barry Sanders says he sees a lot of similarities between this team and the Lions team, his team, that won a playoff game back in January of 1992. First leg of the FedEx Cup playoff starts today in Tennessee at the St. Jude Championship. And according to Alan Shipnick, formerly of Sports Illustrated and Golf Magazine, tour golfer Phil Mickelson has reportedly wagered over $1 billion since the 1990s and allegedly asked Billy Walters to place bets on a Ryder Cup that he was playing in. Those bets included 43 bets on one MLB game. He reportedly lost over $100 million, and he also blocked me on Twitter. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Jeff Lesson. For more, 97.1 The Ticket or Odyssey.com.
Hello and welcome to the Carson Anderson program. Doug Carson, Scott Anderson back in the 97.1 The Ticket Broadcast Command Center after spending yesterday out at Allen Park, which was awesome. So much fun to be out there, and hopefully we're able to bring you some of the feel of what it was like to be at Lions practice, and met a bunch of fans out there. Always appreciate everybody who comes by and says hello and says that they listen. Thank you very much. But Gator was fun. It was fun. It was good to see the guys out there practicing and get a taste for football, pulling the season closer each and every day.
Yeah, I enjoyed it just fine, but I have never seen someone so giddy about a practice in my life as you were.
Yeah.
Today, talking about it.
Yep.
You're still talking about it.
I'm still talking about it.
I'm surprised.
Are you?
That you were that enamored with watching a practice, because we really didn't get to see a ton of it.
Saw enough. It wet the whistle, my friend. It wet the whistle. Did you see, by the way, remember we were talking to Marvin Jones about the contested catch he made? Got a jump ball in the end zone. Turns out Brad Galley and Channel 7 had a camera right there. So we tweeted out the highlight. And Marvin had the great line of, it's just you and the ball. He can't catch anyway, which is his approach towards every contested ball.
Uh-huh.
He can't catch anyway. That's why he plays defensive back.
I like it.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, but all in all, good to see the Lions. And you know what? I think the most important thing I took away from it is, for the most part, they are staying healthy.
Yeah, yep, that's a big one. That's a big one.
Yep.
Still like to see some guys at practice. Be nice to see Denzel Mims.
Yeah, and I mean, there were some guys away for a variety of reasons, like Frank Redding.
Yeah, I mean, those you understand, but it's the players that are out with some nagging injuries at this point. That's a little disappointing, and particularly when it's a wide receiver. That I think we have some baseline expectations for on this team, and he's not practicing, and that's tough, because it feels like this is something we've gone through every season with guys you're bringing in and they're not healthy, and it's been under the Brad Holmes canopy. Why not?
Sure. During the Brad Holmes regime, some might say.
I went canopy.
You did.
Umbrella, that first year, remember they brought the two guys in, the two receivers in, and nobody did anything. The one guy was a Perriman, was released before the season began.
Yeah.
And was it Williams? Is that the other one?
Yeah,
just didn't play much.
Yeah.
And then last year it was DJ Chark's turn, and very excited about DJ Chark. Loved watching him play in Jacksonville. Thought he was a good receiver. But the knock was doesn't stay healthy. And he was coming off an ankle injury, and right away he wasn't healthy and kind of sputtered around through the season, found his footing towards the end, but not enough where you're going to sign him long term. And then they go out and get Denzel Mims, and kind of has that same story about him. He's only played a few years in the league, but he hasn't been that available either, and has a very limited number of receptions, and starting training camp without him too. And I'm looking at this receiver room, and I want to think that this is a better group than what they had last year. And maybe sheerly by experience, with Amon-Ra St. Brown entering his third year, and having these other guys like Reynolds and Cully Freeman there that know what it's like to play with Jared Goff, maybe that's enough to say, just from the experience, it would be better. You bring in Marvin Jones, who's a pro's pro, and if he stays healthy, which throughout his career he's been pretty healthy, that should be more productive than what they got last year from Chark. And then of course you're going to get 11 games, you hope 11 games from Jamison Williams as opposed to just a handful of games at the end of the year last year where he really wasn't even in the playbook. Maybe this still is, but Mims is part of it. I want to see him.
Yeah, well, it's funny. You started laundry listing Brad Holmes' receiver moves, and I don't think you mentioned Trinity Benson. Like there's some swings and misses. There's a bunch of swings and misses in there in the wide receiver room. But I do want to bring up Holmes coming up in a few minutes. Tigers last night get a win, and I mean, look, I'm trying to hang on, but it's tough. But they still out there battling, and maybe most importantly, some young guys coming through. At the beginning of the year, I thought I'd spend most of the year watching just Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson at bats. When are they coming up in the lineup? Kerry Carpenter, is he going to be a piece they want to keep around? What is Akil Baddoo going to bounce back? What about the young arms? Who's going to give us a full season and stay healthy? And all those questions. But I'm kind of reduced to that right now. But I had the game on in the background last night, and you heard something that we'll bring up a little bit later on, which was kind of interesting. In our household last night, Gator, the wife and I, we finished Severance.
Oh, look at you.
Yep, three episodes at the end. The psychological thriller, and I would just say it is a think piece, and it is, without question, begging for a season 2. It is. I don't know how they can get away with not having a season 2, which I've seen teased out there, but I haven't seen any reporting on it because I immediately went and looked at maybe somebody's got something on it. But
do you like when series set things up for the next season? I mean, I get that that's the model for television because you want to keep the gravy train rolling. Or would you prefer that, it's a one and done? It's one season, it's neatly packed in there, and we got a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right? There's belief, like Squid Game. Squid Game sort of wrapped it up and then teased another season right at the very end. I think I'd probably prefer that to the way Severance ended, but I don't want to give away any spoilers, and I don't want to talk about it other than to say it leaves you thinking.
HBO had the show True Detective. And the first season, and they've done...
I didn't make it. I tried.
They've done 3 different seasons of it. And I think there's a 4th one coming. Each season is different. Different actors, different stories, although 1 and 3 are kind of loosely tied together. And I liked that. I liked that they were all kind of their own thing. It's like watching a movie. I don't want every movie I see to end up being lending itself to a sequel.
Like this one... I mean, then you might not like the way this one ends. I'm okay with it. I'm perfectly okay with it, and I enjoyed it. And I blew through. My wife and I blew through the whole series in about 5 days. Now it's only 9 episodes long. So
what you understand, the concern is that you don't want the show that you loved and that you really enjoyed through season 1 to all of a sudden take a nosedive halfway through season 2 because you're like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, no, I don't. You don't want that. I hear you. So
like, Wendy, can we get out of this mess again?
Yeah,
Wendy.
Yeah. In reference to Marty and Wendy Bird from the show Ozark, where there was some stuff happened. Hey, I don't want to oversell it, so I'm not going to go, whoa. I'm just going to go, huh, because the Lions just cut somebody. We'll get to that today at 10:16 here on Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket.
Very intriguing indeed. Well,
it's appropriate tease.
Okay.
I don't want to whoa it. Last time I did that, I got annihilated.
Fair enough. But if something big does happen in your life and you want to toast that occasion, feel free to use Flying Ace Bourbon as the spirit of choice because it is delicious. I've been drinking this now for between half a year and a year, I guess, and I'm telling you, it is really, really good bourbon. It is smooth. It's a small batch American-made bourbon blended in Holland, Michigan, and it's part of the Coppercraft family, so you know that it is quality. It's artfully crafted for the brave of heart. It's a blend of aged whiskey, so it's got notes of caramel, toasted rye, vanilla, and ripe stone fruit, and it's versatile. Drink it any way you want. Do shots, drink it on the rocks, have it neat. You want to mix it with some cola or some ginger ale, have at it. That's the way I really actually like to drink it with ginger ale. It's one of my favorite ways to drink it. But don't worry about anybody giving you that side. I just shoot it right back at them, man. It's only $30 a bottle. Not going to bust your budget at all. It's the perfect everyday drinker that's as smooth as it is unpretentious. There's no gimmicks. It's just great, approachable whiskey for the Maverick at heart. Follow them at Flying Ace Spirits on Instagram, and you can stay up to date on their upcoming releases. And as always, please drink responsibly.
So I was wondering,
248 Tucker, Scott Anderson, 97 won the ticket.
Real quick.
All right, so
who's the worst Lions quarterback?
Is the Detroit Lions have announced, according to, well, actually they haven't announced. Eric Woodyard, reporter that covers the Detroit Lions for ESPN, tweeted out at this hour that the Lions have released guard Logan Stenberg. A source tells ESPN.
That is not quite a woe.
No.
That's a, you know what that is? And that's not a meh. That is a,
That's a legitimate,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
King, would you agree? That's a,
Yeah. Recent draft pick. Thought he had some potential.
Yep.
Not like a 6th-round pick either, right? I mean, wasn't
Was
he
that when they
third
went
round?
third? Did they go Jonah Jackson and him in consecutive picks? Back-to-back guards?
Yes, they did.
I think Jonah Jackson won the battle. I'm gonna give it to him this round.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe to say.
Deep analysis, gang. Thank you. Road grader. Thought had a chance to be a depth guy, but that bodes well for Cody Sorsdahl, the rookie that they drafted out of William and Mary, and maybe with Vaitai proven to be healthy, I guess, Graham Glasgow in the mix. How many guards do you need?
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot to what they feel about Sorsdahl.
Yeah.
The rookie out of William and Mary. He's got some versatility to him, and I was reading a story about him this morning they're impressed with him and how they've thrown everything at him. Taylor Decker was talking about it. Says, we've thrown everything at this kid and this kind of sink or swim type thing, and he's handling it. He's got the skill set. He's got quick feet, and that's big. And already getting the endorsement from his teammates. So,
yep, I guess the writing was on the wall there. So when you do that, though, that opens up a roster spot. So I wonder what they did to open up what the corresponding move might be. But anyway, probably the biggest news today was Adam Schefter tweeted out the details of the Teddy Bridgewater contract. Now, the Lions had $17 million under the cap, and at least according to Spot Track. And cap numbers it seems to be they're kind of vague. But anyway, they've got money under the cap. And I was thinking to myself when they signed Teddy Bridgewater, remember the first call we got? Was it, I don't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday show, whatever show it was, the day that the Teddy Bridgewater news broke, somebody said, I don't like the signing because I just can't get the vision of Carolina shoving the ball down the Lions' throat last year. I want to see somebody that can stop the run and not a backup quarterback. And I'm like, you can do both. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater's not going to take up the entire remaining cap space. Then there's still enough there that they could take on a contract of a player that gets cut from another team that they think can help them. Or I think more likely, and what I'm predicting and what I hope they do, is use that money at the trade deadline, take on a big contract for a team whose season's got off to a bad start and they got somebody that can help you. You give up a future draft pick and you take that contract off their hands, and bam, you get immediate help at a position of need. And 4 or 5 weeks into the season, we'll know what that position is. And I suggested it might be along the defensive front or it might be a wide receiver. Again, we will have a more clear picture as to what the team's deficiencies are. And that to me, it makes a lot more sense. But Adam Schefter tweets out that the Teddy Bridgewater contracts were the maximum of $5 million, including just $2.5 million guaranteed. I thought Bridgewater would get $6-7 million in a 1-year contract. This could be just a $2.5 million hit. And we've talked about Bridgewater quite a bit. But would you say less money than you expected Bridgewater to get from Detroit?
Yeah, it's a lot less money. I thought it was going to be somewhere even upwards of $8 million, maybe even up to 10, because of the position, how important it was. I thought that maybe Teddy Bridgewater had a lot of leverage, a lot of hand in this negotiation. Well, you guys got the cap space. You need a backup, a capable backup. Hello. And it could have worked it out that way. But I don't know if this is Brad Holmes pulling a Jedi mind trick or if this is just a situation where Bridgewater looks at it and says, no, I'm good. This is familiarity. I know Dan Campbell. I like these guys. I like where this team's going, and I'll give it my shot here. But for it to only max out at 5,
yeah,
that surprises me. The 1-year deal doesn't surprise me, but for that little money, it did.
When I saw what that money was, I'm like, man, Brad Holmes does it again. And I was thinking about Brad Holmes this morning, the Detroit Lions general manager. And I realized this today, Gator. You tell me I'm crazy. I have more faith in Brad Holmes than anyone that I haven't seen really do it yet, maybe ever. Brad Holmes took over this organization, cleaned house in year 1, started the build last year, but his winning percentage, you know what his winning percentage is?
With the Lions?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not good.
It's .367.
Yeah,
They're 12-21-1.
When you start off 3-12-1,
the high water mark is something that we were basically told is not good enough around here. 9 wins. I have more faith in this guy building a championship team than anybody else in Detroit right now that we haven't seen do it. Like, and there's a lot of people that we haven't seen do it yet. So there's a little bit of blind faith. But I wouldn't call it blind faith. I would call this, I have faith because it seems like his era, well, not perfect, because we just talked about the wide receiver acquisitions, which haven't all been great. He's probably taken more swings and with more misses at that position than any other position on the team. But I don't think it's blind faith. I think it's faith that is justified in watching them make smart move after smart move and put together a very credible team. I have more faith in Brad Holmes than maybe anybody I've ever not seen actually do it yet. But certainly the most of anybody in Detroit, like more than Yzerman or any player or any coach. I mean, because you could say that Dan Campbell hasn't done it yet, but I have a ton of faith in this guy.
So you have more faith in him than Steve Yzerman right now?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Because I would imagine Yzerman's the pushback one here in town because he built it with what Tampa Bay is now. It's not a dynasty with what Tampa Bay has now, but Tampa Bay has been built into an organization that's competing every year.
Now, let me make one thing clear here. I do have faith in Yzerman. I have more faith in Brad Holmes. This isn't a Yzerman's got no shot, I don't believe in Yzerman topic. It's a who do you most believe in that you really haven't seen do it, whatever it is, if you're a player, a coach, a GM. You haven't seen him do it yet. I have unlimited faith in Brad Holmes. This is just another shrewd move. They got Teddy Bridgewater on the cheap, is what it feels like.
Yeah, and it might be a player that never sets foot on the field.
Why not?
But we all agree it's a good move. It's a good signing to have him as the backup, that insurance policy. I love it. I'm not quite ready to go there yet. I think he's getting real close, though. And it's interesting. It seems like Steve Yzerman, his stock initially when he came to the Wings was sky high because of what he did in Tampa. It's come down a little bit. I don't think it's come down significantly. I think it's come down a little bit because fans are starting to get impatient with how long this rebuild is taking. The moves made this offseason looks like they're putting on some big boy pants and bringing in some real talent to this team where, okay, now the expectations start to go up again. Is this team a playoff team this upcoming season? We will see, and I'm intrigued by it. Brad Holmes comes in with like no expectations, right? Because you don't know. Great, he helped out with some drafts with the Rams, but we just didn't know. But he's done a real nice job of building this team, and where they are right now and where I think they're going to go, yeah, I think it's very complimentary of what he and his staff have done, and I think the coach is involved as well. But
I'm all in, man.
I'm all in. I'm pretty much all in. It's just I guess I don't have him above Yzerman just yet, but it could happen as early as this season, depending what the Lions do. If the Lions go out and do what we expect them to do, then yeah. If the Red Wings just go and make the playoffs, but they're opening round fodder, but the Lions go out and make the playoffs and win a game, I think Holmes takes over.
Who is your guy? You have more faith. They haven't done it yet, but you have absolute faith that they will get it done.
I'm all in on Jalen Duren. I think this guy's ceiling is unlimited. It's higher than what I expected coming in. I think he's going to be an all-star. I think he's a more athletic Bam Adebayo. He's got to work on his offensive game outside of being outside the paint, of course, but obviously his body is already built for the NBA. He's like one of the youngest players, so his room for growth is endless. He physically matches up, like I said, because his body's already there. But I think the fact that his passion is work, that he was selected as one of the USA Select team members to go against Team USA for scrimmages. Him and Cade Cunningham were the two local guys, right? And according to all reports, more than held his own against the other big men, Jaren Jackson Jr. and those guys on the USA team. I think he's going to be, I mean, we're all talking Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey for of course, for obvious reasons. But I think Jalen Duren, he's my guy. I'm all in. This guy is a Troy Weaver special right here. When he drafted him, I think he went under the radar a little bit. We saw flashes last year, of course. But I think Jalen Duren's going to be the stud out of this group.
248-539-9797. Who is your all-in guy? You have tons of faith that this guy is going to be either a star player, a fantastic coach, a great GM. Because I realized today, I have the utmost faith in Brad Holmes. I can't believe they got Teddy Bridgewater on the cheap. Can't believe it. Carson Anderson, we'll get yours. 97.1, The Ticket.
there any reason that you have seen, any evidence that people should be tapping the brakes on their enthusiasm?
Look, I think the Lions are going to be really good this year. I mean, I've covered this team. I started at the Free Press in 2010, and there's been hype before. I think, coming off that 2011 season, there was a lot of hype for 2012. Just, young Matthew Stafford and Sue and Kelvin. And I don't know if I quite bought in. They didn't do anything in that offseason. This offseason, they went for it, and that's the biggest difference to me. And so I don't know that they're a Super Bowl team, but I expect them to win the division. I expect them to get a home playoff game. And if that happens, you're a couple wins away from the Super Bowl. I mean, you're within spitting distance of the Super Bowl. So I'm not trying to.
Wow, you were the first person to use the word Super Bowl today.
Yeah. I mean, look,
wow.
Wow. So I don't want to say I don't think the Lions are a Super Bowl team, but it's not that unreasonable that people have this belief that, wow, we're getting closer to that, I guess is the point.
Here are the defensive players that were amongst the list of 10 players who stood out early in camp. 1, defensive back Brian Branch. First-round talent that dropped to the Lions in round 2. Branch has come to Allen Park with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. Branch is already working himself into first-team reps with his ability to play both in the box and cover equally well. If Branch continues on his trajectory, it's going to be hard for defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn to take him off the field, especially on passing downs. Okay. That would be useful.
That's very useful. And I know Gator subscribes to this, is the guys in the secondary seem to always get hurt, and they get hurt often.
Yep.
Whether it's for a play, a week, or a month, you have to have depth there. And if you have quality depth, that's huge. Because going against someone's what happens in a game, Doug, when a starting cornerback goes out of the game and they replace him with
Doug Carr, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Who's your all-in guy? You have a ton of faith. They haven't done it yet, but you have a ton of faith that this player, coach, or GM is going to be a star at their job, because I just saw the Teddy Bridgewater stuff, and I'm like, I believe in everything Brad Holmes is doing. Now, and I mean just about everything. Nobody bats 1,000, but I just think Brad Holmes is making great move after great move. And I was trying to look in the mirror here a little bit. Okay, why do I believe that? It's a little bit of self-affirmation. I mean, I said it before the draft. I would take Jack Campbell with the second first-round pick, and they took Jack Campbell. So, of course, I'm going to love Brad Holmes.
Right.
But then they did some other things. They walked away in that draft, and I'm like, wow. And you look at last year's draft, and you kind of go, wow. And then you look at the free agent acquisitions and how they overhauled the secondary, and I'm thinking, wow. And now we called for Teddy Bridgewater. We called for Teddy Bridgewater for months.
Yeah.
And they get Teddy Bridgewater. And again, is it some self-affirmation? Yes. Well, I don't think of you and I as big ego guys, but is it a little bit of feeding your own ego because he's doing stuff that you want him to do? Yeah, maybe.
Well, even just go back to the first draft. I mean, if I can admit that I think Penei Sewell fell in their laps, that's fine. Make the pick. Don't screw it up. He didn't screw it up. But in addition to that, they got a Lee McNeil out of that draft.
Yeah.
Who looks like he could be maybe a bust-out player this year at defensive tackle. They got Amon St. Brown out of that draft. They've done some nice things.
Yeah.
With the draft each and every year, and it started with that first one. So there's a lot of reason. I understand your logic in doing it. I'm almost there with
you. Too, but
yeah,
I'm at a point where I'm at this point.
I'm the same way
building a Super Bowl team.
I'm the same way with Holmes as you are with Yzerman.
Yeah.
Right. But I also admit I think Holmes could pass it depending on what happens this year. I mean, if they go out and win the division like we think they do, like they think they should, in year 3 of a total rebuild, and it is a total rebuild because they had to start over with the first thing they had to do was trade their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's quite impressive. For me, I've been going back and forth. I got a lot of names on my mind, the guys I have faith in, but I'm going to go with the guy that I actually have seen playing in the pros for just a minute. And it's Marco Casper from the Red Wings. I'm excited about this because when he stepped into the lineup for that game, that one time, he stood out. He was not some kind of shrinking violet. I mean, wasn't, just kind of fading into the background. This guy was out there making plays. He was going into the corners, digging the puck out, setting other players up. You could see that he's got skills, and it was a first-round pick for a reason and was not intimidated, and he's young. This isn't some guy who's been hiding in the European leagues or the Swedish league for 5 years. I mean, this is like a 19-year-old, 20-year-old guy now, and I can't wait to see him and compete for the job this fall camp. And I think I'm hoping he makes the team because of the way he played in his debut this past season. That's a guy I'm kind of all in on.
248-539-9797. Who's the person that hasn't done it yet, but you have ultimate faith that they will? From an unnamed texter, guys, I find myself having a good anger about Holmes. Not at him specifically, just that the organization has had 60 years to do this, and this dude comes in, and after 2+ years, he has us on the cusp of being ultra competitive. What the hell was everyone else doing? He's been terrific. Unnamed texter, your faith is absolutely blind. He hasn't done anything. He drafted a running back and a middle linebacker in the first 18 picks of the draft, which is objectively the 2 least valuable positions on the field. The roster is not good.
Okay, running back is not an invaluable position on the field. In fact, it's quite valuable, and you could argue it's one of the top maybe 3 positions out there on the field. The problem is that the longevity of that position is what doesn't have the value. You still need quality running backs, but they're disposable in the league because that's the way it is. But don't say that the running back isn't valuable because you're way off base with that.
Well, there's a couple things about that. There's a difference between running back and young running back. Young, cheap, all the tread on the tires running backs, there's more value in them than there are aging, star running backs who are starting to get slowed by the wear and tear. I mean, they take their share of hits, and it takes its toll.
Well, and think of it this way too: if you hit on that player and you drafted him in the first round, the running back, let's say Jahmyr Gibbs is great. He's a guy who's showing it as a running back, as a receiver. He is truly a weapon. And then you get to that 5th-year option, you pick him up, and he still is in great shape. If you want to extend him and give him that second contract, because it is a running back, you're not paying this exorbitant price because the league is devalued what they pay the running backs when all is said and done, but it doesn't devalue the position.
There's 2 things about that text. One is, this is clearly a hard and fast rules guy. You don't do this, and I'm never going to be that, ever. I think it's foolish because every draft is different. Your needs are different. Some drafts there'll be 10 running backs worth taking. Some drafts there'll be none. And some drafts there's no edge rushers worth taking. Some drafts there are 8. So I'm not a hard and fast rules guy. And I also take great exception to the line, the roster is not good. Okay. That I disagree with. We have fundamental disagreement there. Gary and Shelby says, my all-in guy is Dan Campbell. I think he thinks he's one of the players, and that's a good thing. And he's got those guys believing in themselves and playing really good, hard in the trenches. It's badass football. 248-539-9797. My all-in guy is Mo Sider. He hasn't been to an all-star game, nor has he been nominated for any trophy outside of Rookie of the Year. However, I'm convinced he will win multiple Norris trophies and be top 3 NHL defenseman for the next 2 decades. That's a long time. Scott, my all-in guy is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to be a legend. His work ethic reminds me of Jerry Rice. It's Carson Anderson. Let's get to your open line calls. We go to Dennis here on 97.1. Hi, Dennis.
Hey, hi, Doug and Gator. I just had mentioned to your screener that Mickey Redmond had a little bit of a throwaway line last night on the Tiger broadcast. He was down at the ball game, and he was talking about Steve Yzerman and what he'd done this summer. And he said, and I don't think he's done this summer, And I thought, maybe he knows something that we all don't know. I've been under the opinion that there's still a deal out there to be made, and kind of a high-level deal, and I think Yzerman's going to make one more move.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Dennis. That did not go unnoticed by Scott the Gator Anderson.
Yeah, I was watching the game last night as well and saw the interview Johnny Kane did with Mick and talking about, hey, here's the addition of DeBrincat and the other players they're bringing in. And you're right. He said, and I want to paraphrase. I think what he said was, and he may not be done yet in terms of adding to the roster. And then I got kind of like a tingle because it reminded me of what Jim Price used to say when he said, a lot going on, Scotty. I can't talk about it right now, but there's a lot going on.
It's code.
Yeah.
It is code for the rest of us.
And when Jimmy would say that, it meant something was going to happen and something would happen.
Yeah.
And look, is Mickey tied in? Mickey's tied in.
Mickey's tied in.
For him to say something like that, I agree with you. It was sort of a throwaway, but not really. I mean, you don't say that unless you
kind of might know something.
Maybe. So I'm excited because I think maybe there could be something happening.
You were paying attention. You saw the same thing. From the Twitch feed, Liam Hall says Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a top 10 back. Willie Demp says it's got to be Cade for me. Cade Cunningham's an interesting one, and I suspected we see his name come up.
Well, King talked about the rave reviews that the Pistons duo has been getting, and Cade is the one that's really taking the rave reviews. So very excited about a healthy Cade Cunningham with the young talent this Pistons team has, and of course he's part of it, what he can do in year 3.
Okay, am I crazy? When I saw the numbers on Teddy Bridgewater, I said, that's it. I'm fully convinced Brad Holmes, who's got a winning percentage of 36.7 in his time in Detroit. He's 12-21-1 as a executive with this team, and yet I'm fully convinced he's going to build a championship caliber team here in Detroit. It's just smart move, reasonable contract after reasonable contract, stocking with good drafts. I'm all in. I haven't seen him do it yet. Who is it for you? You haven't seen them do it yet, but you have the ultimate faith that they will get it done. I think Michigan fans might have gone through this with Harbaugh over the last couple of years, and that might have been maybe not as much. I think people thought he would never beat Ohio State, but finally cleared that hurdle, and it seems like kind of taken off. But what is it for you? 248-539-9797. Speaking of Harbaugh, I know that the Michigan State coordinator spoke over the weekend. The Michigan coordinators are going to speak today. I want to get to some offensive questions for Michigan and Michigan State. We'll do that in the 11 o'clock hour here on Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket.
So I was wondering, 248-539-9797, real quick, who's the worst Lions quarterback in your lifetime?
Well, that's a terrific question. And
In your Lion fandom.
Unfortunately, there are many to choose from. And if how far are we going back? We're just going 30 years? My lifetime?
Your lifetime.
Okay, all right. I got to believe at the near the top of that list would be one Ty Detmer. Was 1-3 as a starter, threw 3 touchdowns, and that's where the positives end. 3 fumbles, and had 10 interceptions. This all being, let's go back, 1-3, 4 games.
Yeah. I mean, what was it, 6 or 7 in one game? I think he had 6 against Cleveland. That was the first game after 9/11. And he had another one that was
I think Brad Holmes told you exactly what he's thinking about Jared Goff right there. He talks about we have to retain good players, our core players, and he names Jonah Jackson, Penei Sewell, St. Brown, and he starts to name Jared Goff, and then he stops.
You can't afford them all.
I think he was trying to tell you that he thinks that Jared Goff is part of the core here and that he's going to re-sign him.
Yeah, but David, I think he's also implying you can't keep everybody.
Doug Harsh, Scott Anderson, 97 won the ticket. Feedback coming in, 248-539-9797 from Antonio in Novi. My guy, Max Clark. He's not under the radar, but he's already producing in the Tigers organization. He didn't skip a beat after being drafted. I think he'll be a superstar. Gator, you almost went there.
Almost did.
So it's not about even under the radar guys. We're looking for players. They haven't done it yet, but you have full faith that they will get it done. It's not just players, it's coaches, it's executives. And it was Brad Holmes seeing the Teddy Bridgewater contract where I'm like, that's it. I'm fully convinced he's building a championship caliber team. He'll have a team good enough to win a Super Bowl in his time in Detroit. Hell, it might be this one.
I mean, I can understand the Max Clark love. I mean, it only makes sense. He's got 4 hits already on the season. He's 4 for 12. Not like he's got this huge sample size. But he's got a home run, a triple, and 2 doubles. Those are his 4 hits.
All extra base hits? Yeah. From Mark D, I am all in on Jahmyr Gibbs. The dude is going to be all over the place. His footwork is elite, along with his vision. It will explode onto the field.
Oh.
Brandon and Clausen, I'm all in on Jaden Ivey. 22-4-7 in the last 10 games against 6 playoff teams. Derek in Oxford, my guy is Holmes. He has finally built the team the right way by drafting and development. I don't give a crap who he picks in the first round, according to position. A baller is a baller. I can't believe someone actually said the Lions don't have a good roster. Clearly they miss being top-heavy with 3 great players and disappointment. Okay. I mean, look, the crazy thing about it is, we've talked about the roster. It's littered with good to very good players. Where's the superstar?
They don't have one yet. Now, one could emerge.
Several could emerge.
The NFL.com had their top 100 players as voted by the NFL players. And the Lions had 3 of them. But they were I think the highest rated was Jared Goff at 66, and I think St. Brown was like 67, and then Aiden Hutchinson was, I think, in the 80s, high 80s or low 90s.
Penei Sewell didn't make it yet, huh?
I didn't see Penei Sewell on the list, and I didn't see Frank Ragnow on the list, and I was surprised at that, but those are 2 guys that I think should be considered, in the top 100 for sure. And I was actually expecting one of them to be in the top 50, and neither of them were. But I think you look at the Lions roster, and it's just chock full of good players, really good players.
Yep.
And these young players that they've drafted in the 3 years have potential. Like, can I see Penei Sewell being a superstar tackle in this league? Yep. Can I see Aiden Hutchinson being a superstar edge rusher? Yep, I could see that. I don't know if I'll ever see Amon-Ra St. Brown being thought of in the same breadth as a Calvin Johnson because they're different types of receivers. But it doesn't mean that Amon-Ra St. Brown can't have this amazing career and be this steady influence. And when you look back at it, you'll be like, You know, that guy had 8 out of 10 years he was 1,000 yards. It was something like that.
Right.
He's just a real solid player.
Yeah, I mean it does lack superstars, and it's hard to. I mean, in Detroit, we had 2 Piston teams that won champion. The Going to Work Pistons were one of the greatest non-superstar teams to ever win a championship. It's hard to do. It's incredibly hard to do without superstars, and that's true in the NFL. If they are to reach their potential, I find it hard to believe that Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, and maybe some of these offensive guys, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, won't be in the top 5 in their position group in the league. If they reach those, some of those guys reach that kind of potential, then they'll have their quote-unquote superstar. But right now, they don't. In this moment in time, right now, they don't.
And what happens at the end of the season if they play really well, they win the division, win a playoff game, Goff doesn't get hurt? Does Goff all of a sudden, does he start to garner that superstar moniker?
I don't know.
People start looking at him, and I don't think they do. I don't think people would, because he doesn't have the ability to run, to take off and go and get big yards and make people miss in an open field where you're like, oh my God, that just happened. He doesn't make these wild throws. He's just really good. He's just really steady, and he's a pro.
I think it's really hard to get defined in the league after playing in the league for a bunch of years. I think it's incredibly difficult to be redefined. The book is out on Goff. He's not considered a superstar or an elite quarterback. That even if they win a Super Bowl, it's almost as if they're going to have to win it because Jared Goff led them on a epic 2-minute drill to win the NFC title game and then did it again in the Super Bowl. Because I feel like once you get defined,
he needs to have the postseason success to get that level, because he was tracking there.
Yep.
I mean, after 3 years in the league, I think a lot of people would have said Jared Goff's a top 5 quarterback. And then things fell out of favor, or the coach lost confidence in him. He comes to Detroit, and they're rebuilding his confidence, and he looks like he's a top 10 quarterback. But can he get into that upper echelon of top 5? I think only with postseason success.
You're right, Doug. It's really hard to redefine, relabel someone who's already been kind of labeled. He was on that trajectory, Gator, but then once McVay labeled him as the reason why we can't win one, then it's going to be hard to go back to that. I don't think it has anything to do with running, though. I mean, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence aren't exactly running quarterbacks. If he puts up 5,000 yards and win the Super Bowl, I think he can get to that status again. But it's going to be really hard. He's going to have to carry the team basically by himself. And that's going to be hard because if things go right, Jamison Williams is going to be a big part of that, right? Laporta, Gibbs, St. Brown. So I don't think it matters to him, obviously, but it's going to be hard to get that superstar status. He's going to have to throw up like huge passing numbers and have playoff success.
Another one here from Mickey in Garden City. I think it's Cade. He will be a top 10 player. These are players, coaches we haven't seen do it yet, but we think we have faith that they will get it done.
Cade is real interesting because how many games has he actually played in the NBA? Is it 60?
Yeah,
I don't
it's
even.
not a full season.
It's definitely not a full season. So all this faith in Cade is what you saw his rookie year, and reports you read of the offseason, right?
Yeah.
And me and Gator mentioned it earlier. Apparently, him and Duran fared very well against the USA team when they were having their scrimmages. In fact, I guess the first day of scrimmages, Cade and Jalen Duran's team swept the USA team. Now, they came back the next day, made some lineup changes, and Steve Kerr maybe used that as a teaching moment. But like I said, all accounts, offseason, those guys look great. We'll see what happens.
And as much as I want to see Cade play in that tournament, I'm kind of glad he's not.
Oh, he's totally focused on himself.
Yeah, it's like there's a load management thing he's got to do to make sure that he's healthy and ready to go for the Pistons season, because this other stuff that's not his day job.
Yeah, no, it's great news, but until we see it with more consistency, it's funny because it feels like in the NBA, you're drafting players so young that it sometimes could take 4 or 5 years. And this is the runway has gotten so long with NBA draft picks. Whereas in the NFL, I mean, the Lions this is year 3 of a rebuild, and it wouldn't be a shocker if this team wins the division and makes a deep playoff run.
It can happen quickly. It just has never happened for the Lions. That's the thing. I think you read the text earlier. 60 years of like nothing. It seemed like Brad Holmes comes in 2.5 years or whatever it is, and we're thinking division, champions here. It can happen if you make the right moves. Certain players live up to their expectations. It just hadn't happened for the Lions.
It is not. Tiger baseball this afternoon. Tigers wrap up this set with the Minnesota Twins. Look, most people have started to kind of, I think, slowly shift into football mode, but
maybe not so slowly.
Some have gone so quickly. How about Torque last night? 2 bombs.
Yeah, I liked it. The first one goes opposite way. Next one's just a bomb to left center field. Look, he's got all the power in the world. It's just a question of getting that swing right. And sometimes it's confusing watching him because sometimes he's so damn plate disciplined.
Yep.
That he'll take the strikes, and you're like, oh, don't take that pitch, hit the, swing at it. And other times he loses that discipline and starts to chase a little bit. It's just about finding that consistency and finding out who you are. He's got the swing. We know that the exit velocity is huge. The barrel rate is huge with him, but he's just got to do that more often. And last night was another one of those examples. I mean, hey, 2 home runs in the game. It's the third time in his career that he's done that. I think it's third time this year that he's had 2 home runs in a game. This is what he can provide, and he's formidable when he steps on the plate. I mean, he's got a presence about him. Unfortunately, he's done a lot of swinging and missing this year too, which is a little alarming.
Gator, where is Torque on your all-in kind of blind faith guy? Because I know you've always kind of backed him, like, hey, he'll be fine when people try to tear him down and say this guy's a bust. Where does he rank on your like, hey, I believe in Torque as far as blind faith guys?
I mean, I'm pretty high on Torque still, but maybe my expectation of him being this gonna hit 40 to 50 home runs a year kind of guy, maybe that's going away. But you can't ignore that he's so much better this year than what he was last year. I mean, his OPS is like 100 points better, and that's just year 1 to year 2, and he's only 23. And we forget that too. He's a young guy. So I think his trajectory is going to go up, and I hope that this is a guy that is, 30 home run power every year for a good 6 years with this franchise. I hope that's what we can see, and that's kind of where I'm expecting him to settle into and be a much better hitter than what we've seen to this point. But it's all a learning curve and a learning process for him.
Okay, straight ahead, an NFL player is doing this. Does it sound like fun? We'll explain today at 11:02. Get to some college football, Michigan State next hour. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket.
So I was wondering, 248-539-9797, real quick, who's the worst Lions quarterback in your lifetime?
Well, that's a terrific question. And
in your Lion fandom.
Unfortunately, there are...
Mother Waddles brings us this update. Tigers go for 3 of 4 in their series tender with
my lifetime. Okay.
Right here on 97 on the ticket. First pitch at 110 from Comerica
I gotta
Park.
believe
Reese Olson
at
pitching.
the
Tigers winning 9-5
near the top
last
of
night.
that
2 dingers
list
for Spencer Torkelson.
would be
Former
one
Tiger
Ty
Michael
Detmer.
Lorenzen tosses a no-no in his second start for the Phillies. Meanwhile, Lions and Giants wrapped up day 2 of joint practices in Allen Park yesterday. They will open the preseason against each other tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at Ford Field, 6 p.m. pregame right here on 97.1 The Ticket. Lions today releasing guard Logan Stenberg to make room for Teddy Bridgewater. Details of the Bridgewater contract leaking out. Lions reportedly giving him $2.5 million guaranteed in a deal that could be worth as much as $5 billion. PGA Tour first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs beginning today in Tennessee with a St. Jude Championship. There will be 3 events to declare an overall champion and a check in the neighborhood of $18 million. A very good neighborhood indeed. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Jeff Lesson. For more 97.1 The Ticket or Odyssey.com.
All right, Jeff Roll, thank you. Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Open lines, 248-539-9797. Okay, I just saw this on Twitter, and I wondered if this sounds like fun to people. If this sounds like something you'd be like, hell yeah, I'll do that.
All right.
Joey Bosa is trying to gain some weight. He's eating up to 5,000 calories a day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that would be fun? Do you think you'd enjoy that?
When I was younger, yeah. I think I really would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the thing is, I mean, these are professional athletes, so they burn so many calories. That's why it's really hard for them to put on the weight, even when you're a big hulking defensive end who weighs 270 pounds or whatever he weighs, or 250 pounds. He's trying to get heavier. I get it. Is that fun? Yeah. When you're given the green light to go ahead and eat things like pasta and bread all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it's not what you're down with, but if you put yourself in younger shoes when you're college,
put
just
me
out
in
of
these
college.
shoes right now, honestly, because there are things that I eat. I don't, I want to try and eat healthy-ish, but it's not every decision I make isn't a great one. Okay, it's not, and I get teased about it all the time. But I'll get home and, I mean, yesterday I was hungry. I emptied a bag of tortilla chips, covered it in cheese, threw it in the microwave, put some sour cream on it, although it was low-fat sour cream, and just plowed through this quick little meal that I made for myself because I was hungry. That's probably not the ideal lunch, in quotes, but
no, but that's something that like what Joey Bosa would do.
Yeah, but
and I'm curious how much cheese you think is a lot of cheese. And is it real cheese or is this like
no shredded cheese? It was like shredded,
like vegan tofu cheese or something, or
yes, Kang. It was vegan tofu cheese. No, it was regular cheese.
Non-dairy
because I finished
cheese.
the vegan non-dairy tofu fat-free cheese the
made
day
from
before.
cashews?
Yeah, it was actually just paper. I shredded some paper and put it on there. And
No,
threw
but
it in
I'm
the
curious, like
microwave.
how much cheese you think is like, and I covered it with cheese. Because Kane, what's going through your mind when you think that?
Oh,
Doug
it's like a mountain.
Like,
You know,
he's got like
it's like a little hill, right?
He's got like a quarter cup of cheese. He's shredded cheese, just a little bit on there.
Yeah, I think I went a full quarter cup.
full quarter.
I think I did.
You think Doug like measured it out?
He's like,
I didn't. I've been known to
I
do
want
that.
2 pinches worth, okay?
Anyway, but if I don't care, if like I was trying to put on weight,
Mm-hmm.
I think eating would be more enjoyable.
Oh yeah.
I
Hit
think
the drive-through. I mean, if it doesn't matter at that point, I mean, look, you still got to worry about things like cholesterol and sodium and stuff like that. But I mean, just to get the green light to put on calories. I mean, you could load up on the protein if you want, and add bread to it. That's how you do it. You like red meat? I know you don't, but if other people like red meat,
I'd just go get KFC and pound a bucket of KFC.
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, deep fry it, right?
Joey Bosa says he's eating absurd quantities of food in an effort to gain weight. He says he eats between 4,500 to 5,000 calories a day. He's trying to bulk up to get stronger and harder for offensive linemen to move. He weighed in at 269 at the 2016 Scouting Combine, but said he lost weight during his NFL career in an effort to get quicker. He played last year at about 250 pounds. Eating isn't really enjoyable these days. It's more just part of the job.
Well, yeah, when you're not hungry and you have to eat, that sucks. I mean, that's what it sounds like he's going through. He's like, it's like those weight gaining shakes and, like protein shakes. Like, I gotta eat more calories. And you're full. You're not hungry, but you got to force down this whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not fun.
I made a bunch of pasta last night. I had some fresh pasta. It was going to go bad in another few days. I'm like,
Is that fresh pasta if it was about to go bad?
Well, it's not dried pasta. It's pasta that was made fresh one day, and it has a shelf life of, a week or whatever it is. And I knew that I had to cook this.
Okay.
So I didn't make it. I got it from the grocery store. It was fresh pasta made from the grocery store. And so there was a lot of it. But I knew this is something I'm going to have for the next few days. So I cooked the whole package of it, and I get a couple scoops out, put it in a bowl, and mix it with some sauce or whatever, and some cheese, Parmesan cheese. And as I'm getting through it, I'm like, I'm filling up.
Yeah.
And this is, but the way that I eat now is completely different than what I did 15 years ago, and certainly different than what I did 30 years ago. But it's as you get older, to Kang's point about trying to eat when you're full. Like, I was donezo. I didn't finish. I thought, maybe I'll end up having another scoop of the spaghetti for a second helping. There was no second helping.
No.
I didn't finish the first helping. Like, either I'm growing up or something else is going on.
It's something else. I can guarantee it's something else. 248-539-9797. Let's talk to the people. Joey Bosa says he's eating up to 5,000 calories a day. We're just wondering, does this sound like you'd think it's fun? Like, oh, great. Yeah, I want to put on weight.
I guess because I'm thinking back to my college years.
Yeah.
And, when you would go and you would get at Michigan State, you'd get a Jersey Giant submarine and eat the whole sub, right? And a couple hours later, yeah, I could eat. Somebody go to Taco Bell? Sounds good. Let's get some burritos, And you would love it if you were that young and you were in shape and you're just plowing through the calories anyway and you're burning them off because there's just something different about being a machine and burning off calories. You are always hungry. But he says he's not, it's tougher for him to do it. I imagine it's tougher for him because he had already tried to cut weight and keep weight down, and now he's going to have to try to put it on, but also be mindful of the kind of weight you're putting on.
Let's go to Dylan. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Dylan.
Hi, yeah. So eating that, I ate 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day in high school to play college football. It is the worst thing in the world. It is not fun. Because you're putting on the right weight, not the wrong weight. So your bucket of chicken idea is a horrible idea. So you wake up and eat breakfast. You have stuff in your locker. In between every class you eat, you eat 2 lunches. I bought a lunch at school and brought a lunch. Then I'd eat between the classes till the end of the day, take my pre-workout, post-workout. Then you'd have a protein shake after workout, eat dinner, have another protein shake, or eat a humongous bunch of cereal or a big bowl of ice cream.
Because it's what you're eating throughout the day. You're not eating the junk throughout the day. You're eating high-protein stuff, right?
Yeah, protein.
Because you're trying to put on muscle.
Granola bars are kind of your friend because they're not horrible for you, but you're trying to put on weight, and it's just you're not hungry, but you're just stuffing your face with food continuously, and it is awful. It is not fun at all.
All right, there you go. 248 says someone who's done it. 248-539-9797. Dwayne is next. Hi, Dwayne.
Hey guys, how are you? So, Doug, you will probably know who this person is. Do you know who Marnie McBean is?
Actually, no.
You're a Canadian, so she's the most decorated Olympian in Canadian history. She's a woman.
Not Sandra
scholar
Schmerter?
rower.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, huh?
I said
no,
not
not
Sandra
that one.
Schmerter.
But anyways, Marnie McBean. I played golf with her, and she's a very large woman. But when she was rowing, we were talking, and she said she would eat close to 7,000 calories a day, and she would tell me, like for breakfast, she would eat like 8 to 10 pancakes, bacon, sausage. She just loaded, and then at lunch, like at 11, she'd eat another big meal. And then at 1, she'd eat, but she said once she quit being an Olympian, it was difficult for her to drop any weight at all because she's still a pretty large woman. I mean, she looks like she could still row a boat pretty well. And and we were having dinner, and like there was extra desserts on the table, and she's like, "Anybody eat those?" And she just take them and stuff them all in. I mean, so she still wanted to eat a lot of food. She couldn't stop that after she got out of athletics. And it is, but she was.
I see it with offensive linemen.
The food.
Yeah, they either go one of two ways.
Yeah, the offensive linemen either explode,
Right.
or
they go Jansen's route.
and you're like, wait, that's you?
Right.
Like they become unrecognizable.
Like they drop a ton of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys see it? Is it Russell Okung?
Russell Okung is
my God.
unrecognizable.
I think he's like 200 pounds.
He looks like
and he played at 300 or something.
It looks like he weighs less than me. I think he might. 248-539-9797. Anyway, just a thought. Coming up, let's talk a little offense from Michigan and Michigan State. That's straight ahead. 97.1 The Ticket.
This literally happened to me yesterday. Scrolling through on my phone, came up with a video, and it just going through different reels or whatever. And the video of the Michigan State touchdown pass to beat Wisconsin shows up on my feed. We were just talking about
we
this.
were just talking about.
We just talked about it. So listen, if you're tired of being tracked online, and of course you would be, do something about it. Download the DuckDuckGo app today, and you can help block those trackers when you're browsing and you're searching, because if you use DuckDuckGo as your browser, you're going to be able to conduct private searches with the help of tracker blockers that help to prevent the spies in your searches. So keep those searches and your browsing activity more private. Don't delay. Download it for free today or visit DuckDuckGo.com.
All right, so Gator, we are creeping towards the college football season. In fact, week 0 is coming up. Is it a week from Saturday? No, it's 2 weeks from Saturday.
They're going
2 weeks from Saturday is week 0.
I think there's hesitancy on who
which
it
means
is.
3 weeks from today.
Well, I think the hesitancy is it going to be Cal and Stanford?
The
or
first
are they gonna
Thursday,
wait to see
which
if the
includes a
ACC,
Minnesota-Nebraska
if
game
there's
that could be really
a mass
interesting.
evacuation from.
And then would it be 3 weeks from tomorrow is Michigan State's opener. 3 weeks from Saturday will be Michigan's opener. So, what's that?
I was going to say, and of course, we have the Lions tomorrow night, which is fun. You got 2 games tonight in the NFL, the Texans and Patriots. And then you've got the Vikings and Seahawks tonight at 10. So both of those, you get one at 7 and one at 10. So you get to watch the doubleheader tonight.
At this hour, Michigan's coordinators are meeting with the media. Over the weekend, Michigan State's coordinators met with the media. And I want to talk a little offense. And let's start with Michigan State.
All right.
Obviously, the big question is at quarterback. And offensive coordinator Jay Johnson said that they could play 2 quarterbacks this year.
He sort of said that, but yes.
Yeah. What do you make of this?
Well, I think the way the question was posed to him was, could you see a scenario where both quarterbacks get some playing time? He's like, yeah, I could. And I think right now what it tells you is that there's still some things that are unsettled with who's going to truly be the starter. I think that they're leaning it that it's going to be Noah Kim. He's got a couple of years experience on Caden Hauser. But Hauser comes in with a lot of fanfare. He's a redshirt freshman and has decent size, and he's mobile. And Noah Kim's got some mobility too, and is further along in understanding what they're doing with the offense. So I would expect Noah Kim to be the starter on this team, but I don't know what to expect from Noah Kim as the starter because he's had so few reps in game situations. And even if you looked at a spring game, that's hard to look at and really gauge anything because you don't know what the teams are really looking for there. And so I don't know. I don't know what to expect. It's a real true unknown right now.
If the spring games matter, Michael Penix didn't blow me away in the Washington spring game when I was out there, but I still think he's probably going to be pretty good. Is there any chance that they start Noah Kim in the opener against Central and Caden Hauser in the second game against Richmond?
I don't think so.
No.
The only chance would be like injury, but just for strategy to see, hey, when do you guys go out there and win the job so we can have the guy by week 3?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's how they're going to do things.
Because they got like the 2 warm-up games before Washington.
Yeah, I would imagine it's Noah Kim's job, but we'll see. There's a lot of intrigue and a lot of question marks with what goes with Michigan State's offense because you're replacing big-time players at wide receiver. One lost to transfer, one to the NFL. You don't bring back a ton of experience. You have some experience. Trey Mosley, I think, is a very good receiver, and Michigan State always seems to have that guy that by the time they're seniors, they really kind of separate themselves and show that they've got some true talent that can maybe even play at the next level. And Mosley is, I think, moving in that direction. But they've got Foster and Fitzpatrick or other receivers. They really like some other players they have there. I know they like Tyrell Henry, Alante Brown. They get as a transfer that they recruited out of high school, but he ended up going to, I think, Nebraska. But he's got a ton of speed. So there's a lot of unknowns in the passing game. The offensive line should be better for Michigan State. But, I mean, the bar is set so low with that from what we've seen.
That's the position group that I feel like is most likely to take a step forward.
Yeah, I think it could take a big step forward, and they're going to need it too. Running back wise, they've got a pretty decent stable of running backs. Jalen Berger is back. They get Nathan Carter, who's a transfer from UConn, I believe. He's got some speed, some shake to him. Jaron Mangum, who was at Colorado, he's in the program now. And then they still have Jordan Simmons and Davion Prim. There's some good running backs Michigan State has. But, of course, there's not Kenneth Walker. And that's the thing. And it's unfortunate because everything seems like Spartan fans are going to hold it to that standard, which is completely unfair. Kenneth Walker was a unicorn. He was unbelievable. Like that player comes around once every, 15, 20 years in the program. And we've gone from Lorenzo White to Javon Ringer maybe, and then you got Kenneth Walker. I mean, we've seen a couple guys that were really good, but Kenneth Walker was the best.
I mean, the biggest questions, of course, are the quarterback, right? And it's you've got one guy who's a junior, another who's a freshman. If they're close to even, do they just go with Hauser and say this year is going to be an investment in the future? It's not a season with huge expectations So do you go with just the young kid, get him the experience, and hope you can ride him for a few years? That used to be a theory that was pretty prevalent in college football, but in this day and age of transfers, it feels like stuff, it's almost like you do everything you can to win this year, and then you sit down and you figure out your roster for next year, which it feels like now whoever doesn't win any quarterback competition becomes a prime transfer candidate.
Yeah, and that's why you're drafting. You're recruiting quarterbacks every year out of high school. They've got a freshman in Sam Levitt. They've got a recruit out of high school who's still in high school. One of the Hasselbeck kids is pledged to giving a verbal commitment to Michigan State down the road. But as far as your question about if they're even, do you start? I think if they're even, you probably keep playing both of them and find out which someone's gonna separate at some point. And it doesn't stay even all the time. And I don't think it's a situation where one guy has the different skill set, obviously, than the other quarterback does. I mean, I don't think it's a Stanley Jackson, Joe Germain situation at Michigan State.
As far as Michigan's concerned and their offense, so look, their offensive line is loaded, and you know the what they brought back in getting Zinter and Keegan to come back in the one more year campaign, getting the transfers from Washington or from Stanford and from Arizona State and Indiana, all starters at those schools coming into battle for playing time. They still bring back Carson Barnhart and Greg Crippen up front. I mean, they are loaded along the offensive line. And it's funny because last year, even with their success, people questioned, do they really have a downfield passing attack? And then against Ohio State, they threw 3 touchdown passes of more than 45 yards. They took 2 more shots. One resulted in a pass interference to Cornelius Johnson. Another was an incomplete pass to Andrel Anthony. Then they get to the bowl game. They took 2 deep shots for touchdowns. One was overturned, but in the bowl game, almost as if they had this club in their bag and they just opted not to use it. But when you have multiple NFL prospects on your offensive line, and you got a backfield with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, I'm not sure that you need to throw it that much. The most sure way to be able to win a game is if you can just shove it down somebody's throat when they know it's coming and you can't stop them. And that's they could have that kind of talent and ability this year that, as much as people love the downfield passing attack and it's exciting, if you can run the ball, run the ball.
Well, I think that you're expecting a couple of these transfers to start, and then you're expecting them to play at a level that was consistent with what they've seen from Michigan football in the offensive line the last couple of years when they were voted the best offensive line in college football each of those years. So whether it's Henderson or Nugent, those are the new guys, and then Hinton's the third one that comes in. You don't know if they're that player yet. Not yet. I mean, you can guess based on what you saw last year.
You can say on paper that this is their best offensive line, but you're right. Until you see it, I mean,
when you're replacing a center who was the best center in college football last year, and you're replacing a tackle with a pretty good tackle last year. So I don't think it's a question, like a big question, like, oh, are these guys good? Because there's an awful lot of hype that this is a really good offensive line, and you're bringing in guys that started other programs that are transferring in, and they're just kind of reloading here, and it's smart because you've got this window, and you want to keep taking shots at it while you have this window open right now. And the running backs are spectacular, the quarterback is solid, and to me, if there's a question mark, it is the receivers. That may just be like, hey, they're good, but nobody's great. And that can work out if you've got this running game, and then all of a sudden you got to commit more guys to the, inside the box, the tackles, so that you can stop the run. Well, it frees up those opportunities. But they like their tight end at Michigan.
Yeah, he might be the best pass catcher of all of them.
But are they as deep as they have been at that position? No. But Loveland's really good.
Well, there's some unknowns, right? I mean, there's guys that have been recruited to come in with stars next to their names, but what is Darius Clemens going to be? Till we see it, don't know. What is Tyler Morris going to be? Till we see it, don't know. Samaj Morgan, Frederick Moore. What are those guys going to be? Till we see it, we don't know. I just wonder with Michigan fans, are you okay if they just come out and just pound the ball? Do you really think that because like the downfield passing attack didn't really show up in large numbers until the Ohio State game? And I mean, if you can just keep that in the back pocket all season long and just hand the ball off to Corum and Edwards and pound it behind an NFL-loaded offensive line, why wouldn't you do it?
Well, you don't want your quarterback to have his worst game the last game of the year. That's what you don't want
you
to
don't
happen.
Want they had disastrous, catastrophic mistakes in the TCU game, which they had avoided for the most part all season.
And they damn near overcame them, but they didn't. So that's going to be in their mind, but it's also that's good experience when you look forward that you have another year. J.J. McCarthy, I'm sure, is looking back at that TCU game and going, crap, wasted opportunity. But I've got another opportunity in this season to make things right. And their offense, I mean, they could run forever if they wanted to. They could just keep pounding it and score 60 points a game.
Are you
on
like
the ground.
me? Then why wouldn't you?
No, I'm kind of like that.
Yeah.
I think you have to have the threat of throwing the football.
Eventually.
Yeah, and you have to always work on that. But it's a great fallback to know that you've got Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards to just hand the ball off to.
All right, Michigan fans, are you okay if that's what they do? Michigan State fans, who do you want to see at quarterback? How can the offense be better? 248-539-9797. Phone calls, feedback. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, football's back. Week 1 of preseason football kicks off tonight. Houston takes on New England. Minnesota faces off against Seattle. Preseason action, and what better way to put in some prep work for fantasy football season than to enjoy the game at your favorite Twin Peaks. Who's going to be this year's Garrett Wilson? While you're at it, make sure you book your fantasy football draft party. Book that party and receive a $50 bounce back to enjoy once the season starts, as well as a $5 bounce back for all league members. Draft boards, stickers available, as well as power setups and free Wi-Fi for your computer drafters. Call your favorite lodge and make your reservation today. Spots are filling up quickly, so don't miss out. To find the lodge closest to you, go to TwinPeaksRestaurant.com. That's TwinPeaksRestaurant.com. If you've signed up for the E-Club, you already know about a bunch of this stuff. Signing up is easy. Just go to TwinPeaksRestaurant.com/Peaks-Club to get started today. Hey, you can win free stuff and you'll stay up to date on all things Twin Peaks. TwinPeaksRestaurant.com/Peaks-Club.
From there, because then you'd have a chance at schools like, if you wanted to dip into Florida, you've got Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, and Virginia seem like better fits as universities. But I think they're waiting to see if they want to go that route and leave 2 slots open, or if they just want to fill them right now with Cal and Stanford.
But the SEC, if the Big Ten goes to 20, I think the SEC is eventually, and I think people think it's a given that the SEC is going to just grab 4 ACC teams.
Yeah,
I do think Oklahoma State and Kansas are potential possibilities, and it's because of the rivalry with Oklahoma, Bedlam. You're keeping that, and I think a respected football program, and then Kansas from the basketball.
I think they have populated this roster with good players. They have populated this roster with professionals. There's less nonsense, and these guys can play. Dan Campbell has kind of set the tone for the culture, and Brad Holmes, who built draft boards with the Rams and did a great job without first-round picks for Les Snead, setting up picks in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, and helping that team. They basically drafted well and supplemented with huge moves. Brad Holmes has come here, and he has drafted well. I fully believe that. And I think this is going to be one of those seasons where when the final 53-man roster comes out, there are going to be some painful cuts. We're going to be like, oh, I didn't think they cut him. And for the first time, I'm watching other teams play preseason games, and I usually watch for guys that I hope get cut by those teams that maybe the Lions can pick up. I think the Lions have moved past many of these teams talent-wise that they're not even going to be able to or want to pick up other teams' cast-offs because their roster's good. I think the talent is here. And you know, there's some prove it to it. There's some prove it to it. But my God. Doug Carr, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket, talking a little college football. By the way, I was reading a column by Dennis Dodd on CBSSports.com about the college football season.
Yep.
He had like 23 thoughts for the 23 season. He gave us 4 playoff teams. I want to get your take on this playoff field. Georgia.
What?
Michigan.
Huh?
Ohio State.
Uh-huh.
And Penn State.
Well, no, it's not going to happen that way.
Well, I was like, could this actually happen? It would be so funny if the Big Ten beat the SEC to putting 3 teams in the 14 playoff. But I was like, did he get confused with conference realignment? Did he think somebody moved out of the Big Ten? But, I mean, I was like, Dennis Dodd's not like new. You know?
Well, to get 3 of the 4 in there, don't they all have to lose 1 game?
They don't. One of them can go undefeated, and one could lose 1 game, and one could lose 2.
I don't think you're going to get a 2-loss team in the top 4, I guess is my point.
I don't either, but I think it's really interesting that he thinks it can happen. It would obviously depend on what happened elsewhere. You'd have to have 2 and 3 loss teams in all other conferences, or no respect for a 1-loss team from a fading Pac-4. 248-539-9797.
There's still a Pac-12 for now.
I know.
So there's still.
I got a thought on that. I have a thought on this season in the Pac-12. Yeah, but anyway, let's get to your phone calls. Mark, you're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Mark.
Good day, gentlemen.
Hello.
On the topic of Michigan, they have to stretch the field, guys. Think about who they're going to be playing. They're going to be playing very deep into the season against the very best teams. What if they continue to run the ball and not practice the passing game in real situations?
Oh, they'll practice.
They're going to be up on so many teams that they'll be able to do it. They must stretch the field, guys.
Yeah, they'll have plenty of practice in trying to get the passing game going. I don't think there's any threat of that. I think the idea that Doug's bringing up of just running to win until teams prove they can stop it,
Here's a question.
They can just absolutely dominate on the ground. I mean, if you're going to run the ball, if you're going to throw the ball, are you going to gain anything by, taking a top off the defense in the first several games when there's
really
nothing that you're playing until like week 7?
And look, Michigan made hay against Ohio State early with the deep ball. Is that deep ball nearly as successful if they were throwing it all season long? Did you think that in any way they caught Ohio State off guard with that game plan? I think they did. And then ironically, in the end, they just ran it to finish them off. But yeah, I think that had something to do with their success against Ohio State, was their ability to they caught them off guard.
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said for when you're running the football, you're taking just huge time off the clock, and the other team doesn't have a chance to answer, right?
Yeah,
as much, because obviously you're keeping your team out there on the field, and but with Michigan, with these 2 backs, there's going to be so many times they're going to rip off a bunch of long touchdown runs where it's a short possession time anyway. But we don't know what to expect from Ohio State because we don't know who the quarterback is. We don't know much about the quarterback yet. I know it's kind of putting the cart before the horse, but in reality, the season for Michigan, it's Penn State and it's Ohio State. It's not the Big Ten championship game. Whoever comes out of the West doesn't matter. And it's if you take care of business against Ohio State and Penn State, you're playing in the college football playoff, and it is a different game there. And I would expect that a team like Georgia is going to be better suited and better equipped to stop a running game. So, of course, you're going to have to develop a passing game. I just don't think you're going to see it for a while.
Yeah. 248-539-9797. Let's go to Chris. You're on 97 on the ticket. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good. The one thing I wanted to say is I just think they need to stay active in the passing game so the quarterback don't get cold feet. I mean, I think sometimes when he goes out there and you're just running the ball all the time, just lacking the reps out in the game experience with reps.
How many games do you think you're going to see, Doug, where the quarterback throws less than 15 passes a game? Or even less
10.
than 20? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, you got Corman Edwards. You got a line that's going to have a bunch of guys drafted. The back-to-back Joe Moore award-winning lines that's now feeding itself, and that players are transferring here. They're loaded up front.
But you are going to try to develop some chemistry. I guess my point is I expect a bunch of the games to be with more than 20 passes attempted.
I would be surprised, actually, because I feel like, in theory, you go out, you pound the football, JJ throws 15-ish passes, and you get some of the other guys' experience. But, I mean, look, 248-539-9797. I know people love the deep ball, but I can't help but think it was so effective against Ohio State because it caught them off guard. Because Michigan spent much of the season not doing that, at least not doing it a lot. Also, Spartan fans, who do you want to see emerge as quarterback? Where will they be better this year on offense? We go to Joe. You're next. Hi, Joe.
Yes, good morning, fellas. I love your enthusiasm and insight.
Thank you.
Listen, I've been a team physician for a fairly prominent high school program for over 40 years, and I was on the sidelines watching Will Johnson play. I'm just wondering if there's any thought of incorporating him into the offense or special teams. That guy was electric. Every time he touched the ball, there was a chance for him to go the distance, and I've not seen that in Michigan football athletics for quite some time.
Oh, they did with Jabril.
Yeah, they did it 4 or 5 years ago. But I think they might incorporate Will Johnson on offense. If you take a look at their talent and the wide receiver spot, I mean, Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson are good. They're good. Are they great? I think it could be proven. I mean, Cornelius had such a big game against Ohio State with the 2 long touchdowns, but could Will Johnson help if they need it? Yeah, I think he could.
Would you expect to see it in a game other than Michigan State, Penn State, or Ohio State?
Let me be clear. I don't have any insight that they've done this, but would it surprise me? No. And would they use him in big games in that regard? Probably almost exclusively.
I just saw a tweet that made me go, ooh.
Okay. It's not a whoa?
It's not a whoa. It's kind of a, it's a, what?
Don't look at Twitter, Doug.
All right, I'm not going to look at Twitter.
Definitely gets a reaction, though.
Oh, I got one
when I
from
read
me.
it through, I was like, oh.
I had to tell Gator, I'm like, is this
I'm like, is this one? And then I look closer to the tweet, and I'm like, oh.
It's not a whoa,
Is this
but it's
did a lion get released?
There's a lion that's no longer a lion.
There's that. Yeah, that's a good way
And
of
it's
putting
not.
it.
It's not.
No,
Logan
it's
Stenberg.
added to Logan Stegberg, but it's not Logan Stenberg we're talking about.
Am I supposed to guess?
Should we have him guess? We had you made us look like fools, Doug. Why don't you go ahead and guess who you think is no longer a Detroit Lion?
An Aquara.
No, but it's
That's
a
a
good
good
guess.
guess.
It is a good
Okay.
guess.
All right.
I think I would have been a whoa.
I kind of.
That would have been a whoa.
Yeah.
I kind of guessed 2 there at the same time.
Yeah, I like it.
That would have been a whoa, yeah.
Why don't you just tell me?
Okay, so they signed Teddy Bridgewater, which we know.
Yep.
And they also signed running back Benny Snell. They've waived Logan Stenberg.
Is Benny Snell from Kentucky?
I think he may be.
I think you're right.
All right.
But here's the
Yeah.
They have placed running back Justin Jackson on the reserve/retired list.
Well, that's weird.
They just brought him back a few weeks ago.
Huh.
Right? And he's going to be a return guy. Exactly. See, it's
I got my
that's the reaction.
That's
right?
right. My authentic reaction was, huh.
Which was, I was like, oh, huh. Yeah, he would. I like Justin Jackson as a back. I
Start
thought he
that
was-
again. Did you say they signed Benny Snell?
Yeah.
Whoa.
There it is.
248-539-9797. That's odd.
Did not expect to see
Justin
that.
Jackson, when they released that depth chart earlier this week, he was the third running back listed.
Yeah, because he's a guy who plays special teams. And
Oh, you know who looked good yesterday? Well, Ibrahim.
I know.
He looked good
Yeah,
yesterday.
He did. So swap out Big Ten running backs.
Huh?
Justin Jackson was in Northwestern.
Oh, I thought you meant Benny Snell. I'm like, Kentucky's in the SEC, Gator.
I know my realignment's all messed up. I was thinking like, wow, we had a Kentucky.
One guy retired, and another guy they drafted.
Gotcha. 248-539-9797. Phone calls, feedback. We'll get to them. Talking a little college football. Next hour, we got some Tiger stuff we'll get to. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Here are the defensive players that were amongst the list of 10 players who stood out early in camp. 1, defensive back Brian Branch. First-round talent that dropped to the Lions in round 2. Branch has come to Allen Park with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. Branch is already working himself into first-team reps with his ability to play both in the box and cover equally well. If Branch continues on his trajectory, it's going to be hard for defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn to take him off the field, especially on passing downs. Okay. That would be useful.
That's very useful. And I know Gator subscribes to this, is the guys in the secondary seem to always get hurt, and they get hurt often.
Yep.
Whether it's for a play, a week, or a month, you have to have depth there. And if you have quality depth, that's huge. Because going against someone's – what happens in a game, Doug, when a starting cornerback goes out of the game and they replace him with someone off the bench? That guy he's covering immediately gets targeted by the other team. Okay, so to have Brian Branch or anybody, Jerry Jacobs, whoever it is, ready to go if they don't start, that's huge.
Also off the defense, who else has stood out? Defensive lineman Aiden Hutchinson. Hutchinson focused on gaining strength and polishing some movement skills this offseason. The results have him looking like Benny Snell's the one with the crazy mouthpiece. It has like a fan in it, so when he breathes, it spins. You remember that? Kang, you remember that?
No.
No.
I don't remember that either.
A crazy mouthpiece that spins.
Go Google search Benny Snell spinner. I can't
Sure,
believe
that's what I want to Google.
Yeah. Spinner mouthpiece.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe not that either.
Yeah, careful. I see it. That is strange.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a fan. It's his breathing that does it.
Right. I mean,
it looks like a fan blade.
When he breathes, it spins because he's blowing air through it. It's like, so it acts like a fan. I mean, it doesn't cool him, but it spins when it gets when he blows on it.
All right.
Justin Rogers says, "Damn, Justin Jackson news out of nowhere." Yeah, the running back Justin Jackson placed on the reserve retired list.
He went with damn.
He did give it a damn.
Well, we all thought that this organization and the staff loved him, right?
Yeah.
When they brought him in,
enough
they're
to
like,
bring him back.
Yeah.
You got a spot. But Benny Snell, his combine results from years ago when he was a prospect coming out of Kentucky, I believe this is from 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Ran a 4.6 640. Had a near a 10-foot broad jump, just under 30-inch vertical leap. 16 reps on the bench. 5'10", 224 is what he weighed
Those
in.
numbers really don't blow me away.
No, they really don't. But those are combine numbers, right? That doesn't matter. Has he done in the National Football League? He's averaged 3.5 yards a carry on 275 attempts. I think it's a long shot.
Yep. Okay. Talking some college football, 248-539-9797. Two things on the table for each of the fan bases here locally. One for Michigan State, who do you want to be the starting quarterback, and where do you think they'll be better offensively? For Michigan, I mean, if you can just pound the ball and run it, why wouldn't you? And what is the sense of urgency to develop the downfield passing attack when you've got this line and those backs, and then save it for strategic occasions like last year's Ohio State game where they took, I think you count them as 5 deep shots that I thought of off the top of my head. 3 went for touchdowns. One was incomplete to Andrell Anthony. The other was a pass interference call on a deep ball to Cornelius Johnson. And then they had 2 more deep shots for touchdowns in the TCU game, although one of them was overturned. 248-539-9797. Let's go to Scott. You're on 97.1 a ticket. Hi, Scott.
Hey, how are you guys doing today?
What's up?
Yeah, Michigan, I'm a longtime Michigan fan, and I think they're in a dilemma a little bit. And not just them, everyone in the Big Ten, except for maybe Ohio State every 10 or so years. See, the team you need to build in order to win the Big Ten is diametrically different than a team you need to build to win the national title. You know what I mean? We need to run in the Big Ten to win. But TCU had the best player in Quentin Johnson, who averaged 27 yards a catch. So, I mean, it's a little bit different.
Well, I mean, I guess the question is, if you've got that part of the game, if you can throw deep, and you know you can throw deep, or you have faith in your ability to throw deep, do you use it sparingly during the regular season and then break it out at convenient times? I mean, if they don't have the catastrophic, fumble on the 1 and 2 pick sixes against TCU, I feel comfortable in saying Michigan wins that game. But they did those things, and I think the holding on to the ability to throw deep until what they did was a very strategic ploy last year.
No, and it worked against Ohio State, and it was a good thing. But do you think there's any possibility, after we're changing all these things in college football, to possibly actually have a game in the semifinals and finals in cold climates? Something like Soldier Field or Lambeau Field?
Sure hope so.
Because that would give us the advantage. You remember Clemson a couple years ago when they were still invincible? They went up to Notre Dame and got trounced.
Yeah.
And again, last year they lost. I believe it was last year. So, I mean, it's a big difference. The athletes love the warm weather, and we love the running, and we got the bigger linemen. So unless you play games here, we're not going to have that advantage like they have every year.
Well, in the quarterfinals now, they'll be on campus sites, but I think everything is up in the air right now based upon recent conference expansion. That whole, I think, guaranteed spots into the playoff, I think it's relooked at. They might even relook at the format. The Big Ten schedule that got released with the addition of USC and UCLA We'll never see that put into action, like all that talk. And
everything's changed.
You have your 3 rivals you protect and then 6 one year and 6 the next. That's not going to happen. So
are they going divisions? What's happening?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
248-539-9797. Brandon, you're next on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Brandon.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Okay.
So, I love Michigan running the ball every time it works. We're dominant at that. But the thing is when we prove that we don't throw the ball, we don't get those key recruits. So when we have to throw the ball, they're not going to be there. Like, imagine if, like, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Nico Collins, J.U. Chesson, those types of receivers were down in Ohio State. They definitely would have been higher draft picks and more valuable to, like, Ohio State. But so, like, A.J. Henning, he was a big reason why we beat Ohio State the first time. He went to Northwestern. And we lost a big wide receiver recruit to even Boise State. So, like, I just feel like Michigan not throwing the ball is like letting these big wide receiver recruits know.
Do you think those guys transferred because they thought that they can get highlighted more at those other schools? Do you think they transferred because they couldn't move up the depth chart at Michigan?
Well, we saw with Andrew Anthony, he couldn't move up the depth chart, I guess. So, yeah, A.J. Henning, I think Roman Wilson kind of became the clear wide receiver over him.
Do you remember when Michigan played Washington at night a couple years ago, and they just pounded the football that night? They just pounded the football over and over, and they had a bunch of recruits in for that game. And I do remember hearing after the game that some of the recruits that would be focused on the passing attack were not impressed. Now, if you can win the game the way you play the game, I'm not sure it matters. But if you're a tight end, you probably love Harbaugh's offense.
Yeah, but Michigan's still getting top recruits at quarterback and all the skill positions. They're still getting 4-star recruits at wide receiver. Are they going to miss out on a 5-star recruit because Ohio State's got a better offense for wide receivers than Michigan? Sure. But I don't think you change your whole balance. Yeah, you're not going to change your game plan because Ohio State's got the better wide receiver recruit.
You might want to think about it, though. If you have a weekend where there's a bunch of wide receivers in, then maybe you should air it out a little bit and show them what you're capable of. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't change what you do just to impress recruits. But I think he's right to a degree, is you're not going to draw in the best at that position. Now, Ohio State has had first-round wide receiver talent in abundance the last couple of years, and Michigan's beaten those Ohio State teams. So 248-539-9797. All right, Gator, I was thinking about this. I think there's an underrated college football game that's going to be played this year. There's one in particular, but there's probably a couple. The Pac-12 has disintegrated, but the games will be played this year as the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody 8 of the 12 teams have pulled the chute. I think there's a game from the Pac-12 schedule that one school will circle in blood. It's already called the Civil War. I think Oregon State, Oregon has a chance to be a phenomenal game dripping with intrigue.
Blood on the pond.
You've got the
Ducks
Beavers
and the Beavers.
Ducks. Oregon is bolted, right?
Uh-huh.
And Oregon State got left behind.
Yep.
But as a football program, they can kind of do something about it. In the preseason coaches poll, Oregon is ranked 15th. Oregon State is ranked 18th.
Oregon State's got a really good quarterback.
That could be, the leading up to that game, I think that is going to be as bad a blood game there is in college football. I mean, Washington State got left behind by Washington. I don't think Washington State has the team to do anything about it. But Oregon State has a team that can do something about it. And with that one last, who knows what's going to happen to that rivalry moving forward? But that one last chance to take a shot at them, I think that game is, like I said, going to be circled in blood.
It might be. It very well could be. And I'm looking forward to it. Oregon's got a good football team, as you mentioned, so is Oregon State. But these are it's a bitter one.
Mm-hmm.
I have you looked it up and see when they're playing each other, when that game is?
It's always the last game of the year, and I think last year's game was at Oregon State, so that would mean it'd be a lot better if it were at Oregon State, but it's It's at Oregon this year. It's an 8:30 game, 8:30 p.m. on Fox on November 24th. So just one underrated storyline. Haven't heard talked about much. I think that game's going to be something. So, and personally, I don't blame the Beavers for being upset. I don't blame the
You don't want an angry
Cougars.
beaver.
No, I don't blame the Cougars, the Tree, and the Bears at Stanford and Cal for being upset either. By the way, you got that quote in front of you that Jack Swarbrick said?
I'd have to look it up.
Okay. Jack Swarbrick and his team not in a conference had some comments about how disappointed he is that two fine academic institutions in Stanford and Cal can't find conference affiliation, and what that's an indictment on college athletics. And I'm like, you don't have conference affiliation.
Yeah, actually I do. Heather Dinich had the original quote from Swarbrick. It said, the notion that two of the very best academic institutions in the world who also play D1 sports could be abandoned in this latest chapter of realignment is an indictment of college athletics. And Chris Solari responded to that, and he said, well, the real question, does the Big Ten even expand to the East or West Coast if Notre Dame didn't opt to keep its exclusive TV deal and partner with the ACC instead of staying with other Midwest schools? So it's very interesting.
Yes, that is interesting. And, Notre Dame, who has no affiliation, probably shouldn't be talking about other people's affiliation.
They've got a little one with
They
football
do.
with ACC.
They're a voting member with the ACC, and they're in the Big Ten for college puck. But other than that, 248-539-9797. All right, it's a huge story last night. How should we feel about it? We'll get to that at 12:02 on 97.1.
Well, I was tired of restless nights and not being able to sleep well, so I decided to do something about it and want a better night's sleep. So I went to the True Sleep mattress store out there in Shelby Township a few weeks ago, talked with Paul, test drove about a dozen mattresses, and I came up with the one that I liked and the one that I purchased. It's the Posh and Lavish. I'm waiting for it to be delivered, and I cannot wait for this. This is going to be great. It's fits me perfectly. It's firm enough for me. And look, you want to make sure that the mattress fits you perfectly to get that perfect night's sleep. And if it doesn't, well, then you're going to have issues. True Sleep has reasonable pricing for high-quality mattresses. You can find your perfect sleep system at True Sleep. It's Michigan's largest Nectar dealer, and they're available in Troy, Warren, Shelby, or Lake Orion.
And we're brought to you by Northville Lumber. Lions making some roster moves ahead of their preseason opener tomorrow night, 7 p.m. against the Giants at Ford Field. Our broadcast here on the ticket begins at 6 p.m. They signed quarterback Teddy Bridgewater and running back Benny Snell. They waived guard Logan Stenberg, and they place running back Justin Jackson on reserve/retired list. Season high 17 hits for the Tigers, several with 3 hits, including Miguel Cabrera, 2 dingers for Spencer Torkelson. They win 9-5 last night over the Twins. Series wrap up today, 1:10 the first pitch here in the ticket. It's Reese Olson going for Detroit Tigers, trying to take 3 out of 4. PGA Tour, first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs starts today in Tennessee with the St. Jude Championship. There'll be 3 events to declare an overall champion. $18 million goes to the winner. At the Ticket Update desk, I'm Jeff Lesson. For more 97.1 The Ticket or Odyssey.com.
Doug Harsh, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Happy lunchtime. Thursday Mo, Kang? You doing Thursday Mo today?
Always, man.
Yeah.
Come on now.
We worried about
I got a
rain?
big weekend planned, so I got to get this out of the way.
Oh, what's coming up on the weekend?
It's just having kids. No, there's always like a bird.
He's going to have some kids this weekend. His wife and he decided to add to the roster. He's going to have some kids.
We're not going to have any more kids. We're going to stick with the current roster. No moves like the Lions have been making Fast and Furious. There will be no woes over here.
Okay.
Just be. We have actually dueling birthday parties this weekend. Same time. Yeah. So
Same time.
Yeah. So we had to make a decision on what to do. Split up. Me take one of the kids. She takes the other. Go to 2 separate parties. Do we just go to all attend one for a little bit? Go to the next one after?
Are they for kids of the same age?
No. One's a 1-year-old birthday party, and the other is a 4-year-old birthday party.
Okay.
So is the easy answer take the older one to the 4-year-old and the younger one to the 1-year-old?
It's on the table, Doug.
Okay.
It's on the table.
Yep.
Or is it just blow off the 1-year-old and go to the 4-year-old?
Not on the table, I don't think. We're going to be attending. One of us is going to attend it for sure. One of them, and the other. We might do both. I don't know.
What do you do as an adult when you have, there's that dilemma, right? You had that situation? Maybe I remember when I was an adult. I was 13, right, and going through the bar mitzvah season. When I was growing up in the mean streets of West Bloomfield, I was invited to
Fast and Furious,
a ton of bar mitzvahs. I mean, seriously, it was every weekend. And me not being Jewish, but I was invited to all of them. And it was great because I had a bunch of friends. And
the Jewish community loves you.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it. I loved going to the parties every week. And my parents hated it because you had to arrange, as you parents know, there's transportation, there's gifts. And what are we getting out of it? Because this kid isn't having a bar mitzvah. And there were
you're not getting anything in return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a time
where you considered switching to Judaism.
I'm like, I've been doing enough of these things. I can read from the Torah, a little right to left. I got this. No, but there was a time when there was a party. There were 2 different times I remember distinctly where 2 parties on the same day. And you had to you couldn't split. You had to make up your mind which one you're going to go. So you're shunning one person to go to the other.
And Doug, Gator ranks his friends.
He does rank his friends. I'm sure he did back then. He still does to this day.
So you went to the ranking system, right?
So
you just rely on
it's on the board.
This one in particular, I had.
Follow your board.
Yes.
Stay true to your board.
Yes.
Gator, did you stay true to your board?
Not sure. When I look back at it, I know exactly why I went, and you'll figure it out in a second. But one was there was a bat mitzvah for the girl.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Karen.
Yep.
And then there was the bar mitzvah for the boy. His name was Rob. How do you make your decision just based on that?
Just based on that there's
one's a girl and one's a boy.
Whoa.
And you're 13.
Yeah.
You probably went to the girls.
There you go.
Yeah. And did you?
I did. Yeah.
How'd it go for you?
It didn't. I mean, I'm 13 years old. What a competition from 100 other guests. It's not going to happen. Nothing's happening when you're 13. So I turned down my buddy Rob, Rob ended up becoming one of my best friends. So Rob later on.
So he rose in the rankings later.
He did. But at the time, fair to middling with the ranking.
Where was Karen ranked?
Karen was hot. So. Yeah.
Listen, Rob, she's just hotter than you, man.
And
I don't know what to say.
What's funny is that I think Rob understood. He's like, no, I get it.
He's like, I wish I could go to Karen's.
So it's because you feel bad because and Karen was more popular than Rob. Not that Rob wasn't popular. So, but all the kids get invited. Like they both go to this. We all went to the same school. So every kid's invited to both of them. And I don't think anybody went like, oh, I'll spend an hour at this one, go to the other one. They all had to choose. And then I felt terrible because I'm like looking around at the crowd of Karens and everyone's there.
And you're poor
like,
Rob.
oh my God, who went to Rob's? But he still had it, some people that went there, but it was just not the same. And to
Not
this
the
day,
cool people.
I felt kind of bad, but it worked out. I was stood up in his wedding. So
I was about to say, how's Rob doing today? Is he over it?
He's over it.
Okay.
Yeah, he's definitely over it.
All right, good. This didn't have a deep scar.
I don't think it had a deep scar, though. I haven't talked to him in a while, so I don't know.
Well, you brought it back up.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
ripping open old wounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Rob said he understood.
Yeah.
No, dude, when you're 13, you don't understand.
No, but here's the thing. When you're 13 and you see that you scheduled your bar mitzvah the same time as Hot Karen's bat mitzvah, you got to change your day, don't you?
Maybe you have an after hours bar mitzvah, like.
Well, they were late anyway. You could have had one could have been, at 2:00 and the other one could have been at 8:00, right? And there were some of those that went on Saturdays. Actually, there were many that you went to, or 2 in a day that you would go to, because this would be the issue. But as long as they were at different times, the kids would go to both parties. But this was a dilemma. And I can share Kang's dilemma a little bit, but you're going to split it up. Going to go, one kid go to one party, one kid go to the other party. You're fine.
All right, Scott Andelstein.
Somebody said your parents were talking about.
My parents were so pissed. My mom was so pissed.
That you
got another one? You get these invitations, these really, really lavish invitations, right? You open them up and they're frilly and everything, and there's like 6 different cards that are in each envelope with the announcement and all that. And like, oh, this is really nice. It was really kind of cool for the first 10 or so that you got.
Right.
But 25 into it and you're halfway through the season, my parents are like, all right, great. You got another one. And then you're like 40 deep.
Dot on Twitch said Gator's parents were upset because there was no ROI.
There was no
return on investment.
No
None.
ROI. Absolutely not.
You definitely should have.
Like, I'm having a great time with these. Yeah, right.
For a year or two.
I thought, I'm like, wait, can I just have a party? My parents probably they would have said, maybe,
They were
let's
upset.
get something back out of this. Although, what do we get out of it?
Hey, come
Kid
to
gets
Scott's Gator Mitzvah.
Right.
Yeah. Scott the Jonah Anderson.
Okay. So, biggest story of the night was Michael Lorenzen threw a no-hitter last night. I have a buddy who's a Phillies fan who texted me and said, hey, what are we getting in this Lorenzen guy? And I texted him back. And last night, I don't know what time it was, 9:30, I get a text from him that says, I think I like this Lorenzen kid. And I'm like, okay, great. Woke up this morning and saw what happened. I had no idea I was watching Severance after the Tiger game. But anyway, Gator.
We're loving Severance.
How do we feel about Lorenzen throwing a no-hitter? Do we care?
I thought it was great. I thought it was cool. I thought Lorenzen, his short time with the Tigers, he pitched well. In mid-4 down to mid-3. Mid-4 at the All-Star, when he was announced as an All-Star, mid-3 afterwards, and now he's probably low-3. I haven't looked at what the ERA is, but 9 shutout innings and no-hit innings will do that to you.
Yep.
I was glad to see it. It's nothing I'm going to be celebrating. It's nothing I'm going to be looking forward to. Oh, I hope he does really well the rest of the season. It's a great milestone for him. Happy for him. And it's interesting because you look at what the Tigers players' reaction was, and they were all thrilled, right?
Yeah.
And A.J. Hinch talked about it this morning that the guys, get around the TV and watch tried to see the highlights of the out and all that, and everybody was happy for him. But fans will react differently because they traded him away. The ROI on Michael on Lorenzen at this point it's not here yet, right? Because the player's at single A ball, and I think he went 1 for 4 last night. But we're not seeing it yet.
It's honestly, it has no relevance to the trade. Like, I'm happy for Michael Lorenzen because he seemed like a cool dude when he was here.
Yeah.
But my happiness starts with the beginning of the sentence. when I say I'm happy for Michael Lorenzen. End of sentence. That's sort of the end of my happiness. I move on to the next thing. I care way more about Tork's 2 home runs and, Carpenter, another good game. But that's the stuff I care about. But I have no emotion tied up into the Tigers lost this trade. We know exactly what this trade was. A player on an expiring contract who was going to be a free agent that the Tigers probably weren't going to bring back and had no real benefit of finishing the season with him for a chip that we hope turns into something. It's a blue chip that we bet. And I have no emotional ties. I think, do you think fans are mad? Do you think fans see that and get mad?
I think some will, because if they're even paying attention to baseball at this point, I think some will be. Like, great, what do we get out of this? We got a single A player in return. And now this guy goes out there in his second start with the Phillies, he throws a no-hitter. And I think his first start was really good too. And it's a little painful to see it happen, but I can still separate it and be happy for the guy. I think Lorenzen was a likable player on this team, and it was what it was. If it was a one-year signing, and anybody that's a one-year signing, you can already say, well, let's just hope he's good by the trade deadline so we can get something for him.
248-539-9797. Fans, do you have any emotion when you see that? Are you happy for our former guy? Are you mad about the trade? Or do you just not care? It's Carson Anderson, 97.1, The Ticket. Hey, need a refreshing cocktail this summer with a vodka that's unparalleled? It's got purity, unmistakable taste. Stoli Vodka, that's the right choice. Whether you're mixing up classic cocktails or savoring it on the rocks, Stoli Vodka delivers an experience like no other. So if you're in the mood for a premium vodka that stands above the rest, Stoli Vodka is the one for you. Make your moments memorable. Raise your glass and let the spirit of Stoli ignite your senses. Remember, folks, life is all about embracing the extraordinary, and Stoli Vodka is here to elevate your every celebration. Grab a bottle today and experience the spirit that has captivated the world for generations. Stoli Vodka. It's the taste of excellence. Cheers.
Clearly believe they're going to 20. I think there's hesitancy on who it is.
Well, I think the hesitancy is it going to be Cal and Stanford, or are they going to wait to see if the ACC, if there's a mass evacuation from there, because then you'd have a chance at schools like, if you wanted to dip into Florida, you've got Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, and Virginia seem like better fits as universities. But I think they're waiting to see if they want to go that route and leave 2 slots open, or if they just want to fill them right now with Cal and Stanford.
But the SEC, if the Big Ten goes to 20, I think the SEC is eventually. And people think it's a given that the SEC is going to just grab 4 ACC teams.
Yeah.
I do think Oklahoma State and Kansas are potential possibilities. And it's because of the rivalry with Oklahoma, Bedlam. You're keeping that. And I think a respected football program, and then Kansas from the basketball.
I think they have populated this roster with good players. They have populated this roster with professionals. There's less nonsense, and these guys can play. Dan Campbell has kind of set the tone for the culture, and Brad Holmes, who built draft boards with the Rams and did a great job without first-round picks for Les Snead, setting up picks in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, and helping that team. They basically drafted well and supplemented with huge moves. Brad Holmes has come here, and he has drafted well. I fully believe that. And I think this is going to be one of those seasons where when the final 53-man roster comes out, there are going to be some painful cuts. We're going to be like, oh, I didn't think they cut him. And for the first time, I'm watching other teams play preseason games, and I usually watch for guys that I hope get cut by those teams that maybe the Lions can pick up. I think the Lions have moved past many of these teams talent-wise that they're not even going to be able to or want to pick up other teams' cast-offs because their roster's good. I think the talent is here. And, there's some prove it to it. There's some prove it to it. But my God. Tiger baseball coming up today, 12:40, 12:45. I think the pregame starts, and wrap up the series with the Twins. It's amazing that they got themselves in a position here, Gator. It's not really amazing, but it's sad that they got themselves in a position where they could take 3 of 4 from the first place team in the division, and I'm not sure it moves the needle at all because they'll be 7 games back after that.
Yeah, but and this is what's keeping me around. And it's no secret the division's bad, right? We know the division's bad. And you look at the Twins lineup. There's nothing formidable about that lineup that they put out there every day. There's nothing formidable about it. I mean, Carlos Correa can only hit against the Tigers. Other than that, he's not hitting. He's been really bad this year. I mean, I take these games against the Tigers, and he's slightly better than Javi Baez. I mean, honestly, you look at the rest of their lineup, and Joey Gallo has a bunch of home runs, but he's hitting like $180.
Max Kepler's on like a 5-game hitting streak, Gator. I don't know what you're talking
there's
about.
him and there's somebody else's, Jeffers is like a 12-game hitting streak or something like that. But I know you're joking here, but this is a team that's hitting 3 points better than what the Tigers are hitting. But their OPS is up because these guys they got a bunch of guys in the line to get the ball out of the ballpark, but they don't hit for average. And that's where baseball is. The other side of it, they've got great pitching. And you've got decent defense as well. So this is what's frustrating because the Tigers at times have had good pitching, and defensively, they show up as with the metrics, good in one area, not so good in another area when you look at the outfield and the infield. But their lineup is so bad and so inconsistent that they can't seem to put anything together for a long period of time. So when I'm watching today, this afternoon, and if they win this game, I'm just going to be shaking my head going, damn it, is this a wasted opportunity here?
Yeah, I mean, but it's the opportunities were when they, dropped 2 of 3 to Oakland. It's stuff like that.
Yeah, and they got Oakland coming back, so they make up for it by taking care of business against Oakland.
They're just too far out, though, to care, right?
Are they?
Okay. I wondered if I could get you to bite.
Damn it.
Cast the line. He bet.
I mean, look, the record against the division, the Tigers have the best record against their own division.
That's crazy. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about it too is they would have to break the trend that they set the first 4.5 months of this season, and just start playing pretty damn good baseball.
Look, are they likely to? Of course not. They're not likely. But I'm still. They brought me back. If they
He's
win
a dreamer,
today,
people.
I am a
He's
dreamer.
a dreamer.
If they win today, and it's a big if. If they win today, they're 7 games back. They've got 3 games at Boston, then they go to Minnesota for 2 more games. They have 3 games left against the Twins all season. They have the one today and then next Tuesday and Wednesday. But then it's at Cleveland, not a good team. They're home against the Cubs. They've got some tough games coming up against Houston and the Yankees.
Kang,
but
are we really doing this?
I don't want to. I don't want to. But you're asking me if I'm still in.
You're giving me the reason
and I'm
why.
sort
You're
of there because, I wish, the unfortunate thing for the Tigers is they don't have enough games against their own division left.
I'm rooting for guys that I hope are going to be here long term. I want to see some good starts. I mean, I was rooting for Faedo last night. Come on, man. Show you can be part of the future. Let's go to Dan. You're on 97 on the ticket. Hi, Dan.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good.
You know, I'm happier that I'm glad Lorenzen threw a no-hitter. I'd rather have him throw a no-hitter for the Phillies than have Eduardo Rodriguez throw one for the Tigers, because he shouldn't be here. They should have traded him. They should have got something for him, and it's just irritating to me every time I see him pitch that Scott Harris didn't know or didn't have it planned right, where he wasn't, where he didn't know the teams or whatever it was. Dan, he's still here.
I get it, and I was frustrated because it seemed like they had there was a move to be made, and they just didn't get it done. In the meantime, it doesn't take away from the fact that Eduardo Rodriguez has pitched really well for the Tigers. And
no, it doesn't.
Hang on. And at the end of the season, okay, let's say he doesn't opt out. That he's I love it here in Detroit. I'm making enough money. Doesn't matter. Sure, I could opt out and make more money and sign a longer term deal and go elsewhere, but I want to stay here. If he doesn't opt out, the contract isn't too cumbersome, and then you're hanging on to a pitcher that's done awfully well for this team that could help you compete for the division next year.
If he pitches for the Tigers next year on this contract, I'll take every word I just said back about being happier that way.
I don't know that I would roll the dice that that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. But if it is,
well, what if he does opt out, but they're able to agree to a new contract for him, and he's a Tiger for the next 3 or 4 years?
That depends on how much. How much? I don't want to see him overpay for him either.
Yeah,
I don't want to see him sign a big huge contract.
I'm not quite as bitter and mad about it as you are, but I hear where you're coming from. When I see him pitch, it's kind of an awkward thing now.
He's their best pitcher by far.
He is their best pitcher by far, but unless he's committed to staying here and saying, I'm opting in, then I don't know what really the purpose of this is.
I was in the locker room after the game on Tuesday night after he pitched, and he was speaking with the reporters, and I'm hanging out listening to hear what he has to say and the way he carries himself. He's a confident guy, and he seems like he's happy in his situation. Then you're watching the game last night, and the guys are interviewing in the booth while he's in the dugout, while they're
cheering for his team.
In the midst of having a good run in that inning. He seems like the guy that you want on your team, but you can't help but think about what the hell happened last year and what happened at the trade deadline this year. There's like a disconnect between the guy I'm seeing in the dugout and who's talking on the air, the guy I'm seeing in the clubhouse who's talking to reporters, and then why couldn't they get this deal done, and what the hell happened? Why was there radio silence for half a season last season?
Feedback coming in, and this is an interesting take. Lorenzen's no-hitter makes the Tigers organization look better because they helped him get better.
It's true.
I mean, I think people paying attention, if you're a pitcher and you've had some success, but you look at what the Tigers have done with Eduardo Rodriguez and Michael Lorenzen both having like their best seasons here under the tutelage of Chris Fetter, do you consider coming to Detroit because, hey, I want to make that jump too? It was Lorenzen's first start in Philadelphia, and he goes out and throws a no-hitter.
My second start, I think.
His first start in Philadelphia, second start as a Philly, yeah. Unnamed texter, Doug, it's not that big a deal. Good for him. Let's go Tigers. Miguel's on fire. That's awesome. Joe says, half between don't care and half realizing Harris is just as bad as Avila in trade signings and construction of the roster.
It remains to be seen. I'm not thrilled that they weren't able to get the deal with Rodriguez, but let's look at the other side. Getting Matt Vierling.
Yeah.
He looks like he could be a decent player in his team.
You know who else he signed? Michael Lorenzen.
Right. did make that signing in free agency. Yeah. I can't argue with that one. That was a good one. But you want to wait. You have to see what happens when he's got money to spend this offseason. The free agent class is nothing impressive in Major League Baseball this offseason. So can the Tigers get creative and work out a trade to acquire somebody where they're spending money that way? Maybe that's how it happens, but I'm not looking for some gems to come in through free agency.
No. And look, there is money to be spent. There will be money to be spent. And maybe it's taken on contracts. Maybe it's trades. But I will say I'll be very disappointed if the Tigers roster doesn't include two pretty significant additions this offseason.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
It's Carson Anderson. I will hear the best of what A.J. Hinch told the morning show coming up next. Tiger baseball will follow. Afternoon game against the Twins here on 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, discover how good your water can be like our family did with a new Connecticut system that removes up to 99% of contaminants. Remember this, if you're not filtering your water, you're the filter. Don't be the filter. Get clean, purified, great-tasting water and reduce plastic bottle waste. That's a good thing. Call 855-339-4242 or visit cgcwater.com. This month, get 50% off a Connecticut K5 drinking water system with the purchase of a Connecticut Premier Softener. Financing options available with approved credit. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Doug Karsch, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Hear the best of what A.J. Hinch had to say. To the morning show today, Tigers last night get a win over Minnesota. Faedo had a 1-2-3 first and then got knocked around a little bit. Tigers scored a couple in the bottom of the first on a Kerry Carpenter RBI single. The Max Kepler butchered, then compounded the mistake by throwing to the wrong base, which
That's too bad.
Yeah.
That's just a shame.
Faedo gave up a couple of bombs. Tigers were down, and a Riley Green RBI single tied it up. Then Torque hit the first of his two bombs. Some good and bad from the bullpen, but kind of a mixed bag. They had to use Cisnero in the ninth instead of Alex Lang, which was interesting, and he got out of it. But Gator Miggy had 3 more hits. 3,145 for his career now.
He's amazing.
Matt Vierling also had 3 hits.
Yep.
190 for his career now.
Eric Haas had 3 hits. Yep. And there was a fourth player had 3 hits in the game.
Wasn't Akil Baddoo.
What's that?
It was not Akil Baddoo.
I don't think it was. But they're just they had 17 hits in the game last night. It's fun to watch when they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Kerry Carpenter just played his 102nd game in his career. In 102 games, he's got 18 home runs. So I like what he's done to start off his career. It feels like it's a different feel than the Brennan Bosch or the Chris Shelton start. Even though it's only 102 games, it spans over 2 seasons here, and he's taken his opportunity to run with it this year, hitting 277 on the season. So they still need to find other bats. But I love what Miggy's doing. I mean, it's multiple hit games, back-to-back games for him, and it really is astonishing. A.J. Hinch was talking about it after on Tuesday night because he had passed Tony Gwynn and was tied with Robin Yount at the time. And then, of course, he passes Robin Yount. And it's just, you start to look, I mean, it's been a while now that you've been looking at the names of the players that he has passed, and they're all Hall of Famers.
Yep.
Anybody's got 3,000 hits, that's if your name's not Pete Rose, you're in the Hall of Fame. And they're amazing names that are going through. And then, Tony Gwynn, good God, the guy was just born to hit. And I was thinking about what's the name of the player that when Miggy passes them or when he passed them that you're like, this is serious stuff. We are really, maybe we don't appreciate how great he is. And I'm sure for you, it's Tony Gwynn.
Totally Tony Gwynn.
For me, it was Rod Carew. When he passed Rod Carew, I'm like, because all I think about as a kid growing up watching baseball, Rod Carew and looking at baseball cards, that guy hit 388 in 1977. 388. Had like 249 hits or something crazy like that. Like, you start passing these names, and you have to show reverence. And A.J. Hinch was trying to impress upon people. Like, I hope people understand. He's done after this year. Get out and see him because there's still something magical that he can do. And it's a look, 3 hits, base hits. It's not like he's pumping the ball over the fence anymore, but he still gets the job done. It doesn't matter if guys are throwing 97 or not. He's still getting his hits.
Well, there's some remnants of the skill set.
Yeah. And he has totally he's had to rework his swing because of injuries. His swing now is completely different than what it was.
He took a swing last night for a single that I'm like, well, that's a train wreck, but he barreled it up, and he's standing on first right now. So, you mentioned Kerry Carpenter. A.J. Hinch talked about Kerry Carpenter, what the future may hold for him and his role. Here's what he had to say this morning. He's been your guy from early on, Gator. You've always you know what? You were looking for someone to pull for after Victor Reyes was let go.
That's right.
You found salvation in Kerry Carpenter. So, and it looks like he may stick around and might be able to do more for this team than Victor Reyes did. I hope though this isn't like a Haas situation where he goes from 1 year and you go, ooh, and then the next year it's been a tough year for Eric Haas.
Well,
I've been rooting for him too.
Yeah, I think the difference is you're just looking at how he's hit. In 277 on the season, I have to look back and see what Eric Haas's
254.
His best number was a 254.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think there is a big difference there. Haas is an older player in comparison. He's 30 years old, and I was glad to see Eric Haas get the 3 hits last night. He's got to start stacking games like that where he's 2 for 4, or even if he goes 1 for 4, make it a loud hit. But he can't. I don't think he can afford to do a bunch of 0 for 4s, 0 for 3s with a couple of punch outs if he's going to be part of this team's future. I don't think he's part of the team's future, but I root for the guy. There's no reason not to root for the guy. There's a lot to like about him, and he does have some pop in the bat, but I mean, he's gone from 22 home runs to 14 home runs down to 3 home runs. And it's not like the at-bats have changed a whole bunch. It's 351 at-bats, dropped down to 323, and he's got 256 at-bats this year, but only 3 home runs. The power's gone. What happened? He's got to find that stroke. And hopefully he does, because he can contribute. But
it's got to be scary when you're 30 years old and you're going, am I at the end?
Well, you'd rather see it after 30 than at 27.
That's true. I
but
mean, he's crafted himself a role here, and with all these guys, you can see players that aren't the answer, but can they play a role on a good team? Because, I root for our guys. I'm hoping our guys can, and Haas would be one of them, especially because he's a Detroit area kid. But
I think in baseball, if you're 25 and this happens, you have to ask yourself, is this the end? Because baseball, more than any of the other sports, it can go quickly, man. It's just so hard to be consistent. If you're really consistent, you become a Hall of Famer. You're really, the Rod Carews, the Miguel Cabreras you guys mentioned, those guys are great because they keep doing it. In baseball, it's so hard to keep doing it. Guys come in and out of the league all the time, more than the other sports, because it's that hard to hit a baseball.
But what they're starting to do now, and what they put together a little bit in the last week or so, and I think it's something else that A.J. Hinch talked about, and just putting together the lineup, they're starting to get a group of guys mixed up there that are actually showing that kind of consistency, whether it's Riley Green, Matt Vierling, Torkelson, Kerry Carpenter, Cabrera, all of them kind of lumped together, and to an extent, maybe even a little bit of Jake Rogers, because he's showing up. He's hit a lot better lately, and certainly the power stroke is there. That they're starting to put together a lineup that you have to account for more than a little bit, but they need more of that.
Well, Spencer Torkelson hit 2 home runs last night, including one the opposite way, and here's what A.J. Hinch had to say about the young Tiger first baseman. I think Torque sometimes gets too fine, and by that I mean he lets pitches go for called strikes. In that he I don't think he's trying to draw walks, but I think he lets a lot of pitches on the margins that are hittable go, and his strikeout numbers are pretty high because of that. Now, if you look at Kyle Schwarber, who's struck out 149 times this year, but has 30 home runs, there's
that balance.
There is a balance, and you don't have to strike out 149 times to hit 30 home runs, but there's a lot of guys with a lot of power at the top of the strikeout list in the majors.
I think with him, maybe one of the things he has to learn is, to your point, is to go ahead and swing at those. But maybe the reason he doesn't swing at those is not because he's trying to draw a walk. It's because he doesn't think he can do damage with the pitch. But as he gets more confidence in hitting it opposite field, then maybe you'll start to swing at more of those pitches on the outside part of the plate, because that's generally where you see him taking pitches. It's those great pitchers' pitches that are on the outer black of the plate, and every one of them is getting called a strike.
Mm-hmm. You know who could use a good day? Reese Olson.
Yeah.
Big Reese Olson fan, but his last 3 outings, 5 earned runs, 4 earned runs, 4 earned runs, and he really hadn't been touched up like that in a long time, and he's come back to earth here a little bit now. 1-5 on the year, 4.94 ERA, walks and hits per innings pitched, still not bad, 1.17, but he's got a he doesn't have to do anything. He's 24, he's debuted this year.
I'd like him to go at least 5 innings.
Well, it'd be nice to see him make a case in the last month and a half here for a spot in the rotation next year. And he will get the start for the Tigers today as they try and take 3 of 4 from the Minnesota Twins. All right, there'll be lots to do tomorrow, including previewing the first preseason football game of the year.
Football!
That is coming up tomorrow here on Karsch and Anderson. Hope you enjoyed the show. Stay safe, everyone. Treat each other with respect. Tigers and Twins wrap up their series next here on 97.1.